Chapter 11:16 Descent of Creation, Boiling Panic. Chapter 11:16 Descent of Creation, Boiling Panic. The mighty figures of the chaos and primordial chaos trembled in fear and anger at primordial despair's power and the dark forbidden lord's arrogance. Primordial despair was naturally not so powerful. He only obtained a trace of Hanju's power. We have no way out. Put down our fear and fight to the death. The ultimate god of punishment's voice sounded. He had greater influence than Han Huang and Zhao Shuangquan. After all, he was the highest existence in the chaos, the leader of the gods. Great Tao divine spirits and divine punishers began to mobilize their divine power. The 3,000 great Tao and the 7 supreme rules trembled. Countless powers poured down and landed on all the great Tao sages present. Hanju watched with relish and was not in a hurry to attack. Clearly, the 9th chaos was supporting them from behind the scenes. Otherwise, even a great Tao divine spirit would find it difficult to borrow such a strong power of rules. The ultimate god of punishment even summoned 50,000 divine authority generals. The chaotic consciousness clone summoned 100,000 destruction authority generals. More and more figures surrounded primordial despair. Swish! The sound of air being torn apart sounded. A red arrow was shot at Hanju. It was so fast that even primordial despair didn't have time to react. Unfortunately, just as it was about to touch Hanju, it dissipated and didn't cause any damage. What? Hanyu was moved. He had used his full strength, and it was an unexpected arrow. Dao's sovereign, Zhao Xinyuan, and Jiang Yi appeared behind Su Qi. Zhao Xinyuan reached out to grab him, while Dao's sovereign and Jiang Yi used the power of the great Tao world to attack Hanju. The 2 great Tao worlds shrank in their palms and shot out with their palms. Like Han Ye's arrows, they automatically dissipated when they were about to touch Hanju. Dao's sovereign and Jiang Yi's hearts beat wildly when they saw Hanju's scarlet eyes. Oh no, I can't bring him away, Zhao Xinyuan said anxiously, his tone revealing unprecedented panic. Dodge! Dao's sovereign immediately ordered. The 3 brothers suddenly moved. However, the moment they did so, they were hit by a terrifying force and fell through the spatial river, disappearing into the spatial turbulence. Hanju turned around and discovered that countless mystical powers were attacking from all directions. Dazzling light of all colors filled the dark void. Primordial despair opened his mouth and suddenly sucked in all the mystical powers. The million-foot-tall divine authority generals and destruction authority generals were really as tiny as ants in the face of primordial despair. The ultimate god of punishment and the chaotic consciousness avatar continued to cast spells, creating more and more divine authority generals and destruction authority generals. They rushed up one after another. The scene was spectacular. Hanju watched the battle with relish as he sat on primordial despair's head. Let all living beings see your ability. Hanju's voice sounded. He used the dream-entering mystical power to cover all living beings. From now on, anyone who entered the dream could watch the battle. For a time, the entire chaos stirred. After the news spread, more and more living beings entered their dreams to watch the battle. Even many disciples of the Darkness sect stopped what they were doing to watch the battle. They wanted to see the Dark Forbidden Lord's true strength. Han Huang, Primordial Origin, and Huang Zuantian, the 3 primordial fiend celestials, attacked primordial despair. They used their mystical powers and wanted to suppress it. Primordial despair, who had obtained the power of the Lord, was extremely violent. As his figure trembled, he emitted endless negative karma that transformed into waves that swept in all directions. Han Huang and the other 2 were forced back. Han Ling appeared above and bent down to look down at primordial despair. She was like a god looking down at the evil devils in the mortal world. Emperor soldiers swooped down like a rain of arrows, targeting Hanju. Primordial despair's 18 eyes looked up. Blood-colored pillars of light shot out. There were countless of them, and they destroyed one emperor soldier after another. In less than 2 breaths of time, 10 million emperor soldiers were all destroyed. The situation was grave. The Dark Forbidden Lord had yet to make a move. Just primordial despair alone made the chaos and primordial chaos helpless. Han Huang was furious. He couldn't approach the Dark Forbidden Lord. He was going mad. He had no choice but to use the mysterious power that he had not used for a long time. Ultimate origin power. Hanju felt that someone was borrowing his power and ignored it. What would happen if Han Huang used the ultimate origin power? The current Hanju was a creator lord. Han Huang's expression changed drastically. It actually failed. In the third Dao field, Xing Hongxian, Xian Qingjun, Dao Comprehension Sword, and the other Dao companions were watching the battle. It's not optimistic. They can't do anything to primordial despair, even with so many mighty figures attacking together. Dao Comprehension Sword said worriedly. Xing Hongxian frowned at primordial despair. For some reason she had a subtle feeling. Although this fellow was ferocious, she couldn't hate him no matter what. Could it be because primordial despair was created by Han Huang? From the looks of it, the difference is indeed huge. Only someone at your level can turn the tide. Xian Qingjun sighed. The chaos was filled with capable people. In the past, Han Huang fighting all the living beings alone was already shocking enough. He didn't expect the Dark Forbidden Lord to appear, and for him to be so strong. As the women discussed, the final battle changed. Casualties began to appear on the chaos side. Primordial despair stretched out a long tongue. Like a torrent of fate, it swept into the void and directly swept away dozens of great Dao sages. It swallowed them and chewed ruthlessly. This scene frightened countless living beings awake from their dreams, and they did not dare to watch the battle anymore. Qing Waner also felt extremely uncomfortable and retracted her gaze. This sudden change truly made the chaos feel despair. The 3 primordial fiend celestials and the 9 chaos surrounded primordial despair, but they didn't cause any damage. They would definitely lose at this rate. Zhou Song smiled bitterly. The difference is too great. Su Qi was silent. He was not in despair, because he had always had hope. That was his master. As long as his master took action, the trouble that the chaos and primordial chaos could not resolve would definitely be resolved. You're just worms. And you want to compete with me? You're courting death. Dao creators above the great Dao supremes. How long are you going to watch the show? Hanju's voice sounded, moving the mighty figures fighting. Dao creators? Was that a realm above the great Dao supreme? Han Huang's expression darkened. Could it be that there were many existences at that realm? A cold snort shook the Dao hearts of all the great Dao supremes. The darkness above was torn apart. A pair of eyes countless times larger than primordial despair appeared. They were like the eyes of the heavens, cold and dignified. Dao creator, Shi Tian's immeasurable destruction venerable. Primordial despair did not care about the Dao creator. He was still frantically harvesting the great Dao sages, forcing them to continue dealing with him before they could be shocked by Shi Tian's immeasurable destruction venerable's appearance. Shi Tian's creator, immeasurable destruction venerable. I didn't expect you to be the first to stand out. Hanju's indifferent identity reveal shocked everyone from Shi Tian. So, Shi Tian really had a Dao creator. Shi Tian's immeasurable destruction venerable snorted. Dark Forbidden Lord, you want to change the great Dao immeasurable calamity? This is a path that leads to death. The eyes disappeared as soon as he finished speaking. A huge palm, that was as vast as the chaos landed. This scene reminded Han Huang of his father in the simulation trial. Indeed, he was on the same level as his father. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 11:17 Great Dao Creators Gather. Chapter 11:17 Great Dao Creators Gather. The Dao Creators' power shocked all living beings. They even forgot their surprise. Even Han Huang, Primordial Origin, Han Ling, and the others looked up at the terrifying hand that was comparable to chaos. Shi Tian's immeasurable destruction venerable's huge hand stretched towards primordial despair, as if it wanted to grab him out of the chaos. The huge primordial despair was even smaller than a speck of sand in front of this hand. This was the first time primordial despair was afraid. It let out a low roar and trembled. Su Qi and Zhou Song raised their heads and were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe their eyes. What kind of power was this? Could cultivation really reach this level? This was the thought of all the mighty figures present. Hanju didn't stand up. He raised his right hand and grabbed at the sky. In an instant, Shi Tian's immeasurable destruction venerable's huge hand seemed to be grabbed by an invisible force and distorted. Then it shattered and dissipated like smoke. This scene pulled all the mighty figures back to their senses. Impossible. Even the Tao creator above the great Tao couldn't do anything to the dark forbidden lord? Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable did not say anything. At this moment, he was also very shocked, but he was too embarrassed to show it in front of all living beings. Primordial despair went mad again after the Tao creator's threat disappeared. His tongue, which was larger than the galaxy, quickly swept over dozens of great Tao sages and swallowed them. The mighty figures became nervous again. Don't stop. Kill. Your target is primordial despair. Leave the dark forbidden lord to us. Zhao Shuangquan shouted angrily. He wanted to use his anger to suppress his panic. How could the people below fight if they panicked? For a time, the chaotic battle erupted again. However, facing the powerful and invincible dark forbidden lord and primordial despair, even if the mighty figures tried their best, it was useless. The living beings watching the battle in the dream became more and more afraid and desperate. Was the chaos really about to perish? In the blank domain, the Tao creators gathered under the divine tree where the ninth chaos was cultivating. Hanju's clone also came. He was summoned by the ninth chaos in his dreams, so he left the clone in the third Tao field and rushed over. He was a creator lord. His clone was like his main body. The ninth chaos couldn't see through it. The chaotic consciousness, the formless transcendent deity, Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable, and the yin-yang purity nirvana deity all came. They were all silent as they looked at the ninth chaos. Hanju was expressionless, but he was teasing in his heart. I'll watch as you plot against me, the ninth chaos said. The greatest danger to the chaos has arrived. That dark forbidden lord is far stronger than ordinary Tao creators. Ordinary Tao creators. Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable's expression was ugly. He saw Hanju's gaze, and was even more humiliated. The formless transcendent deity asked, "Can you deal with him?" The ninth chaos said, "I'm not confident." The ninth chaos emotions were extremely complicated. He had always underestimated the dark forbidden lord, but he was shocked after seeing him easily break through the creation power of Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable. Impossible. One had to know that even the ninth chaos couldn't do it so easily. That huge hand was not a mystical power. It was the hand of Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable's supreme treasure. With his body as a supreme treasure, it was very difficult to destroy it in one strike. Since it's so dangerous, I should hide in the Tao field. Everyone knows that my Tao field is very impressive. I can still survive. Hanju frowned. Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable said angrily. How can you retreat at such a critical moment? How long can you hide? That dark forbidden lord is hiding so deeply. He will find your great Tao world sooner or later. Hanju's great Tao world had always been in the blank domain. All the Tao creators knew. The formless transcendent deity was puzzled. Could it be that Hanju really wanted to hide? Thinking about his past, it was really possible. But if that was the case, what would happen to the formless transcendent deity? The chaotic consciousness said in a low voice, "We have to fight. We will join forces to fight the dark forbidden lord. I suspect that if the dark forbidden lord opens the dark era, he will definitely be stronger, even strong enough to kill a Tao creator." The yin-yang purity nirvana deity remained silent. The ninth chaos said, "That's right, that's indeed the case. To be honest, I've been trying to surpass the Tao creator realm, but I haven't succeeded. The dark forbidden lord probably has the same goal. I don't know how he succeeded. What I can confirm is that it's related to the dark era. A higher realm." The four Tao creators' hearts were heavy. Hanju was also acting. The ninth chaos scanned them and said, "I'll give you one last chance to choose if you want to participate. If you succeed, I'll tell you the method to attain a higher realm. Choose." The chaotic consciousness and Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable chose to participate. The formless transcendent deity and the yin-yang purity nirvana deity looked at Hanju, showing their cards. Hanju said, "You guys fight first. I need time. I'm about to break through. I will have a higher chance of winning when I successfully break through." Breakthrough? The Tao creators looked at him in surprise. The ninth chaos thought to himself. Is he going to break through to the late stage? How fast? He had never fought with Hanju, but since the latter could suppress the yin-yang purity nirvana deity, he must be at the mid-stage. As for the late stage, how could he be so fast? Now, Hanju could only break through to the late-stage Tao Creator realm. How long had the chaos been born? The ninth chaos had stayed in the Tao Creator realm for so long. Just a minor realm took 1 trillion years or even longer. How long had Hanju been born in this life? There was a limit to his potential no matter how stunning it was. The formless transcendent deity and the yin-yang purity nirvana deity could only choose to participate. The ninth chaos didn't make things difficult for him. Hanju left. The ninth chaos said, "Let's go and think of a way to move the dark forbidden lord out of the chaos to fight." The 4 Tao creators had no objections. They rushed to the chaos together. Speaking of which, this was the first time they fought side by side. Their emotions were extremely subtle. They realized that their supreme era was about to end. It was already like this now. When the endless era arrived, there would definitely be more rising stars and more Tao creators. Especially after the ninth chaos successfully broke through. The Tao creator realm would no longer be the strongest, and their status would naturally decrease. Thinking of this, they felt pity. After fighting openly and secretly for so many years, it was meaningless. On the other side, more and more great Tao sages died in the primordial despair's mouth. His cultivation level of despair also rapidly increased. Devour was always the fastest way to become stronger. The 3 primordial fiend celestials and the 9 chaos were still thinking of ways to deal with the dark forbidden lord. But they couldn't touch Hanju at all. At this moment, Hanju suddenly stood up. He sensed the aura of the Tao creators. Finally, he waited for a long time. He could fight the 5 Tao creators alone. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 11:18 Hope of All Living Beings. Chapter 11:18 Hope of All Living Beings. All the mighty figures fighting instantly became nervous upon seeing the Dark Forbidden Lord stand up. The Dark Forbidden Lord was preparing to attack? The scene of the Dark Forbidden Lord easily destroying the chaotic giant hand was still vivid in their minds, making them shiver. The 3 primordial fiend celestials attacked again. They used their strongest mystical powers and attacked with all their might. Boom! The 3 primordial fiend celestials were forced back. Their bodies were destroyed, leaving only their souls flying to the end of the dark void. Han Yi, did you notice that the Dark Forbidden Lord didn't kill you? Han Yao and Han Yi attacked primordial despair together and sent a voice transmission. Han Yi frowned. He had also noticed this. No matter how those top mighty figures attacked the Dark Forbidden Lord, they did not die. What was the destruction of the body to a great Tao Supreme? What was the Dark Forbidden Lord trying to do? Han Yi didn't think that the Dark Forbidden Lord had good intentions, and definitely had ulterior motives. What was he coveting? All of you can continue fighting primordial despair. I'll give it some power. As for me, I have to deal with the creators of the chaos, Shirtion, consciousnessless, transcendent and purity great Tao worlds. They are the strongest existences and stand above all living beings. If the chaos is destroyed, they can also revive all living beings with a flip of their hand. However, if I appear again, that means they are dead. Next is you. No one can save you then. Hanju's voice echoed in the void, and in the dreams of all living beings. All living beings began to pray that the 5 transcendent existences must win. Hanju disappeared. Primordial despair's aura soared, and became even more violent. Its long tongue swept out for countless kilometers, and swept away hundreds of worlds, and more than 10 great Tao sages. Li Daokong, Long Hao, and Morong Qi went to the top of primordial despair, and prepared to save Su Qi. However, they could not move him no matter how many spells they cast. Su Qi and Zhou Song's great Tao heaven seemed to have fused with primordial despair, and could not be separated. How can this be? Li Daokong was moved. He hated him and wanted to extract Su Qi's soul, and give up his body, but he couldn't do it. The Dark Forbidden Lord's power not only sealed Su Qi, but also protected him. Su Qi smiled bitterly. Give up. You should think of a way to kill primordial despair. I will naturally be saved when the Dark Forbidden Lord dies. Li Daokong and the other two did not insist and immediately moved out. Zhou Song sighed. Your hidden sect is really united. They tried to save Su Qi several times, but no one cared about him. Su Qi smiled. Do you want to join us? I can introduce you. After so many years they could not escape or cultivate. They could only chat and build a good friendship. Depends. Zhou Song sighed, his eyes filled with worry. Primordial despair became stronger after the Dark Forbidden Lord left. After obtaining the power of the Lord, it was definitely invincible now. If a Tao creator did not appear, no one would be its match. It was useless to attack together. Countless Emperor soldiers, Divine Authority generals, and Destruction Authority generals were like a torrent restraining Primordial Despair's attention. Even so, the great Tao sages couldn't do anything to it. The pressure of the battle became stronger and stronger, causing the space at the edge of the chaos to begin to collapse. The River of Destiny and the River of Space-Time appeared and twisted with the 3,000 great Tao, ready to be destroyed at any time. Outside the chaos, in the blank domain, the 5 Tao creators stood side by side. The 9th chaos was in the middle. A black shadow appeared in front of them. With every step, the black shadow doubled in size and quickly surpassed all the Tao creators. The chaotic consciousness, the formless transcendent deity, Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable, and the yin-yang purity nirvana deity, felt immense pressure. Even the 9th chaos had a heavy heart. It was so close, but he still couldn't see through the other party. He didn't understand where the other party got the guts to challenge them. Could it be that he had already surpassed the Tao creator realm? This quickly appeared in the 9th chaos mind. Could it be that the Dark Forbidden Lord had existed longer than him, and had only been hiding? It was not impossible. Otherwise, why couldn't he sense the Dark Forbidden Lord's rise? One had to know that the other Tao creators had not sensed his existence before. The more 9th chaos thought about it, the more uneasy he became. It had been a long time since he felt this way. There was no point in thinking about this now. He could only fight. If the Dark Forbidden Lord dared to come, would definitely be a fierce battle. The 9th chaos completely put away the disdain in his heart, and stared at the Dark Forbidden Lord with all his attention. Dark Forbidden Lord, it's not too late to turn back now. Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable shouted in a low voice. He panicked, but with so many Tao creators around him and the 9th chaos, he felt that his chances of winning were still quite high. Since ancient times, the Tao creators had never joined forces. This battle would definitely be recorded in the annals of history. Hanju looked at them and smiled. I've been looking forward to this battle for a long time. Why would I turn back? With that, darkness spread to the entire blank domain with him as the center. In the blink of an eye, the blank domain fell into absolute darkness. Red flames burned around Hanju, causing him to appear in the darkness. The 5 Tao creators were moved. What method was this? They could sense that they couldn't escape this darkness. In other words, they could only fight. The most hot-tempered yin-yang purity nirvana deity was the first to attack. He flashed behind Hanju, and the endless power of space and time drowned the latter, pulling him into the spatial vortex. The other Tao creators attacked one after another. The chaotic consciousness transformed into the figure of the Destruction Authority General. This Destruction Authority General had 9 eyes, and an extremely terrifying aura. With a punch, his dermic powers condensed into a crimson ball of light that was like the sun and collided with Hanju. The formless transcendent deity drew out the door with his hand. The door quickly rose and opened. The wind of time that was enough to destroy the chaos swept out. In the wind were countless shadows. They were all Tao seekers from ancient times. Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable condensed a huge hand again and pressed down on him. The 9th chaos appeared in front of Hanju. The two of them stood facing each other, one big and one small. They were extremely close. A terrifying aura erupted. In an instant, endless afterimages burst out, as if countless Dark Forbidden Lords and the 9th chaos were fighting. They shattered the spatial turbulence and severed the huge wind, crushing Shirtion's huge hand. Hanju deliberately suppressed his cultivation to the Tao creator realm to enjoy the fight. But even so, he quickly suppressed the ninth chaos. Boom! The ninth chaos body was shattered by countless shadows. The figures were reversed, as if they had fallen into an endless abyss. The ninth chaos was the strongest Tao creator after all. He pulled out a wooden sword from above his head with his right hand. This wooden sword seemed to be made of bones. He waved the sword and slashed. Billions of vitality burst out. Countless trees, surging waves, and layers of mountains scattered the shadows that filled the sky and collided with Hanju. The yin-yang purity nirvana deity descended from above. Transcendent rule condensed under his feet and formed a dazzling light. However, before he could step on Hanju's head, it was blocked by an invisible force. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1119 Power from Spacetime. Chapter 1119 Power from Spacetime. The chaotic consciousness, the formless transcendent deity, Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable, and the yin-yang purity nirvana destruction deity were no threat to Hanju at all. His opponent was still mainly the ninth chaos. It had to be said that the ninth chaos was indeed very strong. It was much stronger than the yin-yang purity nirvana deity. After suppressing his cultivation realm, Hanju's dharmic powers were actually still higher than the Tao creator. Even so, he couldn't easily suppress the ninth chaos. The ninth chaos itself was considered top-notch. At least, all the living beings in the chaos could not compare to him. Even the chaos was created by him. Hanju didn't use the mystical power exclusive to the divine might heavenly sage. He only used the rules to fight. It was the same for the ninth chaos. To them, mystical powers were only for show. The true core was the rules themselves. Hanju suddenly stopped. His body shook, and he broke through the spatial turbulence of the yin-yang purity nirvana deity. 7 supreme rules condensed into 7 dragons of different postures that coiled around his body. There were 9 supreme rules in the ultimate origin world, but he only used 7 in order not to expose his identity. There were 7 Tao creators. 7 was enough to deal with the ninth chaos. The ninth chaos raised his hand and grabbed at the void. He actually extracted the 7 supreme rules around Hanju and squeezed them into his palm. Then he struck out. A terrifying pressure overturned the other 4 Tao creators. Hanju appeared behind the ninth chaos and turned into darkness to devour it. In an instant, Hanju pulled the ninth chaos into an endless dream and experienced billions of lifetimes. When the ninth chaos broke through the dark dream, the other 4 Tao creators had just stabilized themselves. Hanju fought very happily. The ninth chaos didn't disappoint him. According to his estimation, he, who was at the perfected Tao creator realm, needed 1% of a breath of time to kill the ninth chaos. If it was the yin-yang purity nirvana deity, he could insta-kill him 10 million times. Of course, this was only killing, not destroying. The Tao creator could revive infinitely. Victory and defeat were never decided by life and death. Seeing the ninth chaos being killed by Hanju one after another, the 4 Tao creators were shocked. So the Dark Forbidden Lord had really surpassed the ninth chaos. They couldn't care less. They had to continue fighting even if they had to stall for time. Perhaps when the living beings of the chaos defeated the primordial despair, the endless era would arrive. The ninth chaos would take the opportunity to break through and surpass the Dark Forbidden Lord. Hanju could naturally think of their plan. Unfortunately, this plan was wrong. The endless era could only be led by the Creator Lord. In the depths of the chaos, the violent primordial despair began to rampage in the chaos. Countless figures followed closely behind it. Countless mystical powers and great Tao smashed into it, but they couldn't slow it down. Along the way, primordial despair had devoured countless worlds and living beings. Its size had already increased by 100 times compared to the beginning of the battle. The entire heavenly Tao was only the size of its eye. Boom! Han Huang collided with primordial despair and hugged its mouth with both hands to prevent it from opening it. At this moment, Han Huang, who had transformed into the primordial fiend celestial, was also peerlessly majestic. Only he dared to act recklessly. Primordial despair clearly remembered him and was unwilling to hurt him. Primordial despair's 18 eyes landed on Han Huang, revealing a puzzled expression. Han Huang was stunned when he saw its gaze. Primordial despair suddenly shook his head and sent Han Huang flying after being stunned for a moment. Primordial despair's intelligence was still too low. It was now instinctively excited. In its eyes, this was a gluttonous feast. Han Huang stopped and looked at primordial despair with a complicated expression. Speaking of which, primordial despair was only following the orders he had arranged and did not betray him. However, its stance on this matter had changed, but it did not understand. A sword light that illuminated the heavens descended, wanting to cut primordial despair into two. However, the light of negative karma shot out from one of primordial despair's eyes and easily destroyed it. Li Daokong frowned, his eyes filled with anger. He thought highly of himself, but this battle had been fought for a long time. All his attacks had failed. At this moment a voice sounded, "Li Daokong, we have a way." Li Daokong turned around and saw that Dao's sovereign and the other two, who had been sent into the spatial turbulence by the dark forbidden lord, had returned. What way? Li Daokong frowned. Dao's sovereign sent him a voice transmission, causing his expression to change drastically. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he fell into a dilemma, his expression changing. Jiang Yi asked impatiently, "How is it? Have you decided?" The battle was still ongoing. There was not so much time for them to be conflicted. Li Daokong looked at primordial despair. The 9 great chaos were once again reduced to ashes by primordial despair's long tongue. "Alright, I agree." Li Daokong gritted his teeth. Dao's sovereign nodded. Then, the 4 of them gathered and meditated facing each other. They began to cast spells to place a formation. Their auras reached a unified state. No one was stronger or weaker. The battlefield was chaotic. Some were fighting, some were recuperating, and some were afraid, so no one cared about them. The main group of the chaos and primordial chaos had been closely following primordial despair. In the distance, the cultivators of the various factions were scattering the various worlds along the way. Many mortals could not react in time, and were taken away by their dharma treasures. This was an unprecedented calamity that targeted all living beings indiscriminately. At this moment, no matter which corner, no matter how low a mortal was, they would terrified as long as they had intelligence. All sorts of civilizations were suffering the despair of the dark forbidden lord's dream. Technology civilization, slave civilization, cultivation civilization, alternate deity civilization, high martial civilization, and so on became extremely weak in this calamity. Han Ling blocked in front of primordial despair. Countless emperor soldiers flew out from the endless divine light behind her. Primordial despair's eyes landed on her. He suddenly stopped just as he stuck out his tongue. Primordial despair was stunned for a moment before looking at the other living beings. He waved his tongue and swept away several great Dao sages. Han Ling frowned under her mask. She sensed that something was wrong. This was not the first time. Primordial despair almost hurt her a few times but stopped in time. Why was that? Could it be that he had a portion of Han Huang's will? No one knew how Han Huang created primordial despair, and he was unwilling to say. Boom! A terrifying pressure came, startling all the living beings. Even primordial despair stopped and slowly turned around. Dao's sovereign, Zhao Xianyuan, Jiang Yi, and Li Daokong meditated facing each other. Bodies emitted a strong light, forming a huge pillar that connected the supreme rules. The pillar of light was like a crack in the door that was slowly opening. There a terrifying figure appeared in the pillar of light. What's that? Ji Xianxian was surprised. He felt the power of space and time. He suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed drastically. Could it be that fellow? How did he find Dao's sovereign and the other 3? Ji Xianxian was puzzled. How lively! I still caught up to this battle that established the endless era. A cold voice sounded with a hint of madness. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1120 Heavenly Venerate Sun. Chapter 1120 Heavenly Venerate Sun. The sudden arrival of the mysterious expert made the entire battlefield silent. That terrifying aura made them think of the Tao creator, who had attacked earlier. Another Tao creator above the great Tao. Which side did he belong to? The mighty figures heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Dao's sovereign and the other 3. It was an ally. Li Daokong looked up and asked in a low voice. Are you sure he's helping us? Those words gave him a bad feeling. Dao Sovereign said. Yes, it should be. Should. Li Daokong's expression instantly darkened. The pillar of light became larger and larger, and the mysterious expert's figure was also revealed more and more. From his figure, he was probably in human form. He was extremely majestic, and was even larger than the 3 primordial fiend celestials present. For the first time, primordial despair was filled with fear. He roared at the mysterious expert in a low voice as his 18 eyes stared in the same direction. Soon, a man in silver armor and a miniature world above his head stepped out. He was handsome and dignified. Countless divine weapons of different sizes and forms floated behind him. As he stepped forward, the silver pieces on the armor swayed and emitted a soul-stirring sound. The weak cultivators were all entranced, and their consciousness fell into chaos. All the living beings watching the battle in the dream were fine. With Hanju's power isolating them, this silver-armored man was not enough to threaten them. I am Heavenly Venerate Sun. Remember my name. I am here to save you, the silver-armored man said proudly, looking down on primordial despair. He raised his palm and struck. Countless divine weapons soared into the sky and drew countless beautiful arcs in the dark void. It was like a sea of stars descending. It was unstoppable and extremely fast. All of them landed on primordial despair, causing him to wail. For the first time, cracks appeared on primordial despair's surface. Blood flowed out like a chaotic sea, looking abnormally miserable. Tao Creator. Han Huang stared at Heavenly Venerate Sun and clenched his fists. Another Tao Creator. How many Tao Creators were hidden in the chaos? He wasn't the only one. The other mighty figures standing at the top of the chaos also had mixed emotions. Thinking back, they suddenly felt ashamed. They thought that they were invincible. Even if there were opponents, they couldn't surpass them much. They did not expect. Heavenly Venerate Sun's attack was extremely domineering, causing primordial despair's body to begin to dismember. This pleasantly surprised all living beings. The chaos was saved. Primordial despair felt the pain and completely went berserk. It roared and rushed towards Heavenly Venerate Sun. Its aura was still increasing. Heavenly Venerate Sun looked surprised and immediately said disdainfully, the power of a Tao Creator. No wonder. However, your body can't withstand such a powerful force. You will die today no matter what you are. Heavenly Venerate Sun raised his right hand, and strong light burst out from it. The river of spacetime surged out with the light. This river condensed into a divine staff. The top was like a crescent moon, and its body was like a tree root cast from molten iron. The divine staff hung upside down and blasted towards primordial despair. Spacetime took the form of a silver-colored torrent and drowned primordial despair with an unstoppable domineering force. In the torrent, primordial despair's body dried up at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if it was rapidly aging. Soon, only skin and bones were left, looking extremely terrifying. All living beings were overjoyed. Was he going to win? At this moment, primordial despair's flesh began to recover. His recovery speed was even faster than before. In less than 2 breaths of time, primordial despair recovered to his peak, and his aura was even stronger. Roar! Primordial despair roared, and spat out a terrifying black pillar of light. It dispersed the spatial torrent, and attacked Heavenly Venerate Sun. Heavenly Venerate Sun frowned, and raised his left hand to block this force. I underestimated you. Heavenly Venerate Sun snorted, and used his mystical power again. The mighty figures of the entire battlefield retreated, and handed primordial despair to Heavenly Venerate Sun. Heavenly Venerate Sun was a genuine Tao Creator. He easily suppressed the primordial despair, but he couldn't completely kill it. Han Huang's emotions were extremely complicated. Why was this happening? The existence he created was actually stronger than him. Even if he had obtained the power of the Dark Forbidden Lord, why had he increased so much in such a short period of time? Could it be that the Tao Creator was really a natural chasm? As long as he crossed it, he could look down on all the realms below. In the blank domain, in the dark domain covered by the power of the Lord, the chaotic consciousness, the formless transcendent deity, Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable, and the yin-yang purity nirvana deity, were all wrapped in the black aura and bound into a row, unable to move. They could only look at the ninth chaos, fighting the dark forbidden lord. However, the situation was not optimistic. The ninth chaos was completely suppressed. The dark forbidden lord was high and mighty. His right hand grabbed the void and used endless mystical powers from afar. All sorts of dark mystical powers he had temporarily created landed on the ninth chaos. The ninth chaos had already been destroyed countless times and was still fighting bitterly. At this point, the ninth chaos had already given up on defeating Hanju. He only wanted to stall for time and give the chaos a chance. The power of the Creator Lord transformed into countless black heavenly pillars and descended, suppressing the ninth chaos. The ninth chaos soul dissipated and condensed again, attacking Hanju from behind. The power of the seven supreme rules condensed in the ninth chaos palms into an extremely strong force. A strong light burst out and countless great Dao runes exploded, drowning Hanju. In the next second, the strong light and great Dao runes shrank and landed in Hanju's hand. He could crush the power of the seven supreme rules at any time. The ninth chaos was shocked. He must have broken through. He was definitely not a Dao creator. The ninth chaos stopped at this moment. Hanju asked teasingly, "Why did you stop?" The ninth chaos asked in a low voice, "Have you already surpassed the Dao creator realm?" "That's right." Hanju didn't hide anything. At this point there was no need to. The ninth chaos was silent. Hanju smiled. "If you give up, your chaos will die. You will also die." The ninth chaos indeed panicked, but he was still thinking of a way. "You can kill me, but let all the living beings in the chaos go," the ninth chaos said in a low voice. The four Dao creators were shocked, not daring to believe that the ninth chaos would bow its head, surpassing a Dao creator. They were also in despair. No wonder they couldn't defeat the dark forbidden lord, even after they joined forces. Why was this happening? Who was the dark forbidden lord? Hanju smiled. "The chaos must be destroyed." "You." The ninth chaos was furious. He hated the dark forbidden lord, to begin with. Seeing how domineering he was, he no longer had any illusions and immediately attacked. Hanju stopped pretending and raised his hand. The power of the Creator Lord completely erupted. The ninth chaos transcendent rule dissipated as soon as it condensed. He was caught in front of Hanju. "Ninth chaos, you're actually not wrong. It's just the difference in strength. If I'm inferior to you, you'll also eliminate me and make me your subordinate, right?" Hanju stared at the ninth chaos and said coldly, "Thank you for reading on my box novel. Come." Chapter 11:21 Chaotic Despair. Chapter 11:21 Chaotic Despair. Invincible Forbidden Lord. The ninth chaos was silent. Indeed, the prerequisite for him to nurture other Dao creators was that they couldn't threaten him. He also knew that there was no right or wrong in all of this. In the end, he was a step slower and did not surpass the Dao creator realm. The ninth chaos said, "In that case, I won't beg anymore. If you want to destroy me, so be it. However, your battle with me has just begun. Dark Forbidden Lord, I was once invincible. Other existences were also invincible before me. Now that the invincible throne is given to you, how long can you last?" With that, the ninth chaos suddenly began to compress the transcendent rule. A terrifying force was quickly accumulating. Hanju didn't stop him. Boom! The ninth chaos self-destructed with the transcendent rule. The violent power shattered this dark domain. The bodies and souls of the four restrained Dao creators were destroyed. Hanju could be seen when everything returned to normal. The ninth chaos self-destruction couldn't hurt him at all. He clenched his right hand, and something flashed in his palm. He looked at the other four Dao creators he had revived. The blank domain fell silent. The four Dao creators were silent, feeling despair. Even the ninth chaos died? How could they fight the dark forbidden lord? Now, Hanju suddenly raised his hand. The basic power of rules of the blank domain quickly bound the four Dao creators and sucked them into his hand. Hanju clenched his hand and let go. Four jade pendants appeared in his hand. The statues in the jade pendants were the four Dao creators. At this point, the battle between the five Dao creators ended. The ninth chaos perished, and the four Dao creators were captured. The 4 jade pendants floated in front of his chest and emitted a different luster. Hanju turned around and walked towards the chaos. In the chaos, after a long battle, more than half of the domain was already dilapidated. Countless living beings had died. Negative karma filled the various voids, making it lifeless. In the depths of the chaos, the battle was still ongoing. Heavenly Venerate Sun was high and mighty, and still suppressed primordial despair. But his expression was already filled with impatience. The mighty figures who were originally pleasantly surprised felt uneasy again. Heavenly Venerate Sun was indeed powerful, and had always suppressed the primordial despair. But that was only suppression. Primordial despair was still lively. The hostility did not dissipate for a long time. During the battle, primordial despair stretched out its tongue from time to time, and devoured the world. And the great Tao sages watching the battle to increase its strength. The 3 primordial fiend celestials and the 9 chaos began to discuss countermeasures. At this moment, the 9th chaos clone suddenly dissipated, stunning everyone. Immediately after, the other chaos dissipated, leaving only Zhao Xianyuan and Yu Yuan. Huang Zuantian frowned. What happened? Zhao Xuanyuan's expression was ugly, and he did not answer. He was only the reincarnation of the 8th chaos, and did not know of the existence of the 9th chaos. Yu Yuan was the same. The two of them could feel the power in their bodies being extracted. They panicked. They were not the only ones. The chaotic space began to collapse. Space distorted, as if it was being washed by torrential rain. All of them sank. The scene was extremely strange. The 3,000 Great Tao lost control, like 3,000 dragons dancing wantonly above the chaos. The 7 supreme rules darkened, and were no longer so holy. All these changes were seen by the mighty figures. Not to mention them, even all living beings panicked. The collapse of the chaos caused the end of the billions of worlds in the heavens. What's happening? Could it be that the power of Heavenly Venerate Sun and primordial despair is too strong? No. Have you forgotten what the Dark Forbidden Lord said? The chaos also has a creator. Could it be that creator? Impossible. Even the existence who created the chaos died in the hands of the Dark Forbidden Lord? Don't think too much. Perhaps the endless era is coming. The mighty figures discussed. An unprecedented uneasiness and confusion filled their hearts. Heavenly Venerate Sun also noticed this scene. He frowned and muttered, "What's going on? Has history changed? But why didn't I sense it? Could it be because of my interference?" The more Heavenly Venerate Sun thought about it, the more uneasy he became. If he couldn't even resolve primordial despair, how could he save the living beings of the chaos? No. He had to end this quickly. He had to deal with the legendary strongest ferocious beast first, primordial despair. Heavenly Venerate Sun opened his arms, and all the surrounding divine weapons entered his silver armor. His entire body transformed into a divine sword that shone with a strong light, and attacked primordial despair. A terrifying pressure enveloped the entire chaos, suffocating all the mighty figures watching from afar. Endless hope surged in their hearts. This attack had to kill primordial despair. They would really be finished if he failed. Boom! Heavenly Venerate Sun Xian collided with primordial despair. The dazzling light made the entire chaos lose its color. The great Tao sages were sent flying. Primordial despair was still roaring. The strong light suddenly shrank. Han Huang looked over, and his expression instantly turned ugly. A figure appeared in front of primordial despair. It was completely black and surrounded by red flames. Who else could it be but the Dark Forbidden Lord? At this moment, the Dark Forbidden Lord grabbed Heavenly Venerate Sun's neck with one hand and raised him high. Heavenly Venerate Sun's body became comparable to the Dark Forbidden Lord, and was struggling with all his might. Above primordial despair, Su Qi and Zhou Song's great Tao heaven saw Hanju's back, and their faces immediately turned pale. Thinking back to the Dark Forbidden Lord's words, could it be? More and more great Tao sages noticed Hanju. They were all in despair. The Dark Forbidden Lord had returned. This meant that the chaos was about to be destroyed. Heavenly Venerate Sun couldn't escape Hanju's hand. This hand contained an extremely powerful sealing ability. Impossible. Heavenly Venerate Sun widened his eyes, and looked at Hanju in disbelief. Who are you? Heavenly Venerate Sun asked with a trembling voice. He was a Tao creator. He had never suffered a loss ever since he became a Tao creator. Why was he unable to resist this person? That's right. Unfortunately, I'm telling you that the 5 Tao creators, the 9th chaos, the chaotic consciousness, the formless transcendent deity, the yin-yang purity nirvana deity, and Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable, have already died in my hands. No stronger existence can save you. You don't have to struggle. Wait for it to end. Hanju's voice resounded through the chaos. Even mortals could hear it. Under the gazes of the great Tao sages, he clenched his right hand and crushed Heavenly Venerate Sun. At first glance, Heavenly Venerate Sun's body and soul seemed to have been destroyed. Hanju didn't completely kill Heavenly Venerate Sun. Instead, he expelled his soul. He knew very well that Heavenly Venerate Sun's identity was related to him, so he showed mercy. Hanju turned around and looked at Primordial Despair after dealing with him. Primordial Despair was licking his wounds like an aggrieved dog. Hanju's eyes narrowed. All Primordial Despair's injuries recovered. He looked at the mighty figures behind the primordial chaos and smiled disdainfully. You injured my pet and have to become its food. This time, no one dared to go forward. All the mighty figures were in despair. The chaos would completely disappear like the primordial chaos, and they wouldn't be able to escape the outcome of death. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1122 Last Hope. Chapter 1122 Last Hope. Han Huang. Primordial Origin. Huang Zuantian. Zhao Shuangquan. The ultimate god of punishment. The primordial ancestor god. The 9-headed divine spirit, emperor, Han Yi formless world, and so on. The top mighty figures of the chaos were all silent. They didn't give the order to attack, much less boost morale. Despair and fear spread throughout the chaos. Hanju was disappointed and pretended to be disdainful. Are you really giving up? I originally thought that the chaos would fight until the end. Even if you die, you will die in battle. Do you know what the 9th chaos who created the chaos said before he died? Can you? He begged me to let you all go. Imagine a transcendent existence standing at the end of cultivation, controlling space and time, controlling fate, and controlling creation, begging me like a mortal? The dark forbidden lord's words made all the mighty figures furious. Han Huang looked up, his eyes filled with killing intent. Even Primordial Origin and Huang Zuantian were the same. They almost went berserk. No matter how they fought, they could not change a fact. All the mighty figures present were born in the chaos and owed it a favor. Even the transcendent existence who created the chaos fought until the end and died in battle. What were they afraid of? Even the living beings watching the battle through the dream were infuriated, wishing they could tear the dark forbidden lord into pieces. Primordial Despair roared, as if congratulating the dark forbidden lord on his victory. Boom! Han Huang transformed into a primordial fiend celestial and attacked Hanju. He held the divine punishment light blade in his hand and wanted to cut him off, but it was easily crushed. Hanju was satisfied with Han Huang's performance. Only by daring to resist in a desperate situation could he be considered his son. If Han Huang gave up directly, Hanju would choose someone else to accept this great Tao immeasurable calamity. Hidden sect disciples, listen up. Kill. Li Yao raised her sword and shouted softly. All the hidden sect disciples immediately attacked Hanju. Although the chaotic heavenly dog was afraid, it still attacked when it was time. Dozens of personal disciples attacked together. The chaotic fiend celestials used their great Tao mystical powers with a huge commotion. In a desperate situation, the hidden sect disciples erupted with stronger strength than before. Hanju waved his hand and destroyed them all. However, their souls were not injured. These disciples quickly recovered their bodies. Creation Emperor Court, fight to the death. Han Ling flew towards the primordial despair. Her solemn and magnificent voice also made the entire Creation Emperor Court attack. It was the same for the other major factions. Hanju was satisfied. His hidden sect was at least not cowardly. True courage was to face death and the destined outcome. From the point of view of the chaos, when the 9th chaos died, there was no hope. Perhaps the disciples of the hidden sect were still looking forward to Hanju's appearance, But the chaotic mighty figures were really hopeless. Hanju suddenly felt that the chaos was not meaningless. Perhaps he could change the situation. Chaos was born. The primordial chaos was destroyed. Endless life was born. And the chaos was destroyed. When would this cycle end? Hanju suddenly became larger than the entire chaos. With a wave of his right hand, more than 10,000 great Tao sages were reduced to ashes and countless worlds shattered. However, the great Tao sages quickly recovered their bodies. They also discovered this. Why didn't the Dark Forbidden Lord kill them? Primordial despair opened his mouth and rolled his tongue. Only then did the great Tao sages understand. The Dark Forbidden Lord really thought they were primordial despair's prey. That's right. I like to watch the dying spirit struggle. Hanju smiled impudently and deliberately exaggerated the atmosphere of despair, giving the chaotic mighty figures more pressure. Then he bent down and looked down at the entire chaos. His dark face revealed a pair of scarlet eyes and a mouth filled with fangs, turning into the greatest fear in the hearts of all living beings. Struggle with all your might. Fear to your heart's content. The Dark Forbidden Lord's wild laughter echoed in the chaos like thunder. Mighty figures attacked him one after another. Their bodies were constantly destroyed, and they were constantly reborn. They continued to kill. They ignored the primordial despair, but it did not stop. It continued to devour living beings and the world. At this moment, the mighty figures fighting to the death had already forgotten their fear. They only wanted to kill the Dark Forbidden Lord. Hanju waved his palms and killed them again and again. He pretended to enjoy it and laughed extremely arrogantly. He noticed that the dim 7 supreme rules at the top of the chaos had lit up again, and were still fusing. The power of faith of all living beings was fusing into the supreme rules in a way that his senses could not spy on. Even a Tao creator could not sense this detail. He could only see the supreme rules light up. Interesting. Hanju secretly thought that if there was really a Dark Forbidden Lord whose cultivation was inferior to the Creator Lord, he might really fail. Now that he thought about it, the 9th chaos last words were not lies. Hanju ignored the supreme rules of the chaos and continued to wreak havoc. At the same time, the 3rd Tao field, Xing Hongxian, Xian Qingjun, and the other Tao companions came to Hanju's Taoist temple. The other disciples also knelt in front of the Taoist temple. They could also see the dream of the Dark Forbidden Lord and knew what situation the chaos was facing. Hanju let them in. Qing Wan'er was the first to speak. Husband, can you move them all back? The other women also looked at him anxiously. They didn't dare to expect Hanju to go out and fight. After all, they had already witnessed the Dark Forbidden Lord's power. He was really invincible. Xing Hongxian didn't say anything but looked at him. Didn't you call yourself invincible? His children would all die if he did not move now. Hanju said helplessly. I can't move them back. The Dark Forbidden Lord has already isolated the chaos to prevent anyone from escaping. The women were silent. Tao Comprehension Sword muttered. Sister Li Yao is still outside. Chang Yuer looked at him and hesitated. Hanju sighed and slowly stood up. Forget it. He started stretching. Husband, are you? Xian Qingjun asked excitedly. If Hanju was willing to help, he must be confident. Xing Hongxian finally smiled. That was more like it. Hanju said. I'm indeed not completely confident, but for my children, for Li Yao, and for my disciples, I have no choice but to help. Watch. Qing Wan'er could not help but say. If there's really no other way, why don't? She wanted to say forget it. But it was too difficult. Her son was also outside. Hanju said. If I can't win, I can also revive in the Tao field. Alright, go back and wait. With that, all the supreme treasures on Hanju's body burst out. Divine light flickered and covered his figure. Han Huang revived again. He clenched his fists and felt his dermic powers dissipate. He was filled with unwillingness. Was there really no other way? At this moment, Han Ling appeared beside him and said, Second brother, I have an idea. She sent a voice transmission to him. Han Huang immediately rejected it. Impossible. I can't accept it. Han Ling sighed. Only this method can have a chance now. As long as we can protect the chaos, there will be a chance of survival, no matter how great the sacrifice. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 11:23 Descent of the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, Rage of All Living Beings. Chapter 11:23 Descent of the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, Rage of All Living Beings. Second brother, there's no time to waste. Primordial despair has devoured more and more great Tao sages. If this continues, not to mention the dark forbidden lord, even primordial despair will be enough to devour the entire chaos. Han Ling sent a voice transmission. Her gaze landed on primordial despair. Compared to the beginning of the final battle, primordial despair was already more than 100 times stronger. This speed of becoming stronger was really exaggerated. Even the experienced Han Ling was shocked. At this moment, the dark forbidden lord suddenly raised his hand. Han Ling was caught off guard and was sucked over. Han Huang was furious and immediately went to stop him. In the end, his body was shattered by an invisible force. Han Ju grabbed Han Ling's neck and smiled teasingly. It's not right to plot in battle. You should die. He squeezed his right hand and Han Ling's body and soul were instantly destroyed. This time, Han Ling did not revive. This scene made the eyes of everyone from the hidden sect turn red. Han Ling was Han Ju's most beloved daughter, and also their junior sister. She actually died just like that. The personal disciples roared and attacked the dark forbidden lord. You're too weak. You're not worthy of me killing you. Leave it to the little fellow below as food. Han Ju smiled disdainfully and repelled the hidden sect disciples again. In front of Han Ju, who was even larger than the chaos, all chaos existences looked tiny. Han Huang completely went berserk. He attacked with all his might one after another. He was more violent than everyone else. The primordial fiend celestial had completely gone mad. Han Ling's death also agitated the other mighty figures. After all, she had once been an invincible existence who had suppressed all living beings in the chaos. The mighty figures all lost their minds and displayed strength that surpassed that of before. I'll risk it. Damn it, even if I die, I have to die with a backbone. I don't believe it. If you persist, there might be a chance. Who else can we rely on? Divine Might Heavenly Sage, that true invincible expert. It was unknown who mentioned the Divine Might Heavenly Sage, but it raised morale greatly. All the great Tao sages of the older generation knew how powerful the Divine Might Heavenly Sage was. He had never lost. Although the few Tao creators mentioned by the Dark Forbidden Lord were very impressive, in the hearts of the mighty figures, they were far inferior to the Divine Might Heavenly Sage. This was the first time they had heard of the Tao Creator realm. It was the same for the hidden sect. Their morale soared. Some people even prepared to use the invocation technique, but they were stopped. Don't. If Master is coming, he will definitely come. Don't disrupt Master's plan. Do you really think Master doesn't know the situation here? Ji Xianxian said in a low voice. His words made sense. The other disciples no longer thought of using the invocation technique. Divine Might Heavenly Sage? Ridiculous. Do you really think the Divine Might Heavenly Sage will save you? He's only a worm cultivating in secret. In that case, I'll let you see if he dares to come out. Han Ju's laughter was filled with disdain. His majestic figure shot out countless black beams of light that shot into the chaos. These black beams of light were filled with destructive power. The 3,000 great Tao were shattered, and most of them shot towards the mighty figures near primordial despair. In an instant, all the mighty figures could not move, including the berserk Han Huang. Crap! They realized that they were frozen by the dark forbidden lord. Looking at the approaching black beam of light, they felt unprecedented killing intent. This killing intent brought fear that exceeded their limits. Han Huang stared at him. He was not afraid of death, but before he died, he didn't avenge Han Ling, making him filled with unwillingness. He was still not strong enough. If he had hurried up and worked hard to become stronger, perhaps this would not have happened. Han Huang thought of his father and felt extremely regretful. The evil heavenly emperor looked up and sighed. He knew that it was over when the formless transcendent deity died. Li Yao also stared at the dark forbidden lord with a hint of pity. If she didn't come out all these years and kept cultivating, she might have had a better performance when she came out at this time. Jiang Juesher clenched his fists. If not for him choosing to fall into the cycle of reincarnation, before the great Tao immeasurable calamity, he would not be so weak now. Beside him, Han Qinger was indignant and cursed. Just as all living beings were in despair and regret, a strong light burst out. A golden color appeared above their heads, isolating countless black beams of light. This golden color was like the bottom of a seal, engraved with various patterns that were profound and mysterious. No matter how the black beam of light bombarded, it could not break through the defense of the golden seal. The golden seal covered the entire chaos and completely blocked the dark forbidden lord's attack. At the same time, the terrifying killing intent that bound the mighty figures vanished and was replaced by an indescribable warmth. A mysterious force was healing them. Ultimate origin heaven seal. Han Huang muttered to himself as he looked at the golden light above his head. He was overjoyed. He was not the only one. The hidden sect disciples were also overjoyed. He still came. Dark forbidden lord, you've crossed the line. An indifferent voice sounded. All the mighty figures turned around and saw a figure shining with divine light walking over. He was like the hope of the great Tao immeasurable calamity, expelling the darkness as he walked over. That powerful aura shocked all living beings, leaving an indelible impression. This was the divine might heavenly sage. Immeasurable merit divine might heavenly sage. The dark forbidden lord didn't panic when Hanju appeared. Instead he teased, "You finally left the Tao field? Unfortunately you're too late. If you joined forces with those Tao creators, you might have a chance of survival." Hanju said calmly, "Since ancient times evil can't defeat good. Your Tao has been tainted by too much negative karma, and will definitely perish." He raised his right hand, and the ultimate origin heaven seal disappeared. A divine light shot out from his palm and soared into the sky. It pierced through the 3,000 broken great Tao and fused into brand new supreme rules. The 7 supreme rules had already completely fused and become a new rule. You, the chaos, is the foundation of all living beings. If you want to erase creation, have to withstand the backlash. Feel the power of all living beings. Hanju's voice resounded throughout the chaos. As soon as he finished speaking, the new supreme rule shattered and turned into countless lights that scattered into the chaos. The mighty figures were scattered by these lights and did not have time to dodge. Immediately after, they were pleasantly surprised to find that their dermic powers were increasing. "This is," the Holy Mother of Order's voice trembled. Even she, who had witnessed history, could not understand this scene. Those divine authority generals became even taller. On the battlefield, all existences were becoming stronger, except for primordial despair and the dark forbidden lord. This was Hanju's little trick. He temporarily distributed a trace of his power to all living beings and created the will of the chaos. Dark forbidden lord, face the anger of all living beings. Hanju's voice was filled with killing intent. As soon as he finished speaking, the 3 primordial fiend celestials immediately attacked the dark forbidden lord. At this moment, their auras had actually reached the Tao creator level. Even if their cultivation realms had not, they had the power to surpass the Tao creator. Their strength was no longer inferior to the Tao creator realm. How arrogant! The dark forbidden lord roared angrily and waved his palm. Endless darkness transformed into waves that drowned the 3 primordial fiend celestials. In the end, it was forcefully torn apart by them. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 11:24 Count Me In. Chapter 11:24 Count Me In. This power is really strong. Han Huang thought in surprise. This was a power he had never felt before. He felt that he was already omnipotent. Primordial Origin and Huang Zuantian were also overjoyed and extremely fascinated by this power. Tao Creator? They would reach that realm sooner or later. The Dark Forbidden Lord was Hanju's main body, while the Divine Might Heavenly Sage was his clone. Hanju quickly completed the exchange of his main body and clone. At this speed, even the 9th Chaos wouldn't notice. Seeing the 3 primordial fiend celestials unleash their might, the other mighty figures attacked one after another. They had also obtained Hanju's power. Although they were inferior to the Tao creator, they still had the power of a half-step creator. One mighty figure after another rushed towards the dark forbidden lord. Primordial despair opened his mouth and stretched out his tongue, wanting to sweep away a portion of the mighty figures. But he was easily dodged. He roared angrily. His huge body stirred the surrounding spatial fragments. The dark forbidden lord did not panic when facing the attacks of the three primordial fiend celestials. Instead, he easily dealt with them. It was still very difficult to hurt him, even with the strength of a Tao creator. A group of ants who have obtained the pity of a transcendent being. You're really courting death. The dark forbidden lord snorted coldly. Darkness erupted again, and destroyed all the mighty figures who attacked. The three fiend celestials were the same. However, in the next second, they all revived around Hanju. They turned around, and saw that the divine might heavenly sage was already taller than the chaos. The divine light on his body gave them a great sense of security, as if no matter how they fought, they did not have to worry about death. As expected of the divine might heavenly sage. So strong. There's hope. Ha 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 ha, we're saved. Dark forbidden lord, wait for death. It's said that the divine might heavenly sage is the #1 prodigy of the chaos. He lives up to his reputation. Back in the first chaotic assembly, I joined forces with all the geniuses to challenge the divine might heavenly sage. I knew the difference then. Hanju stepped forward and said, "Follow behind me." The mighty figures landed behind him and approached the dark forbidden lord with him. Han Huang looked up with a complicated expression and thought to himself, "Father, why didn't you appear earlier?" If that was the case, Han Ling was dead. He felt that he had an undeniable responsibility. As a brother, not protecting his sister was the greatest irresponsibility. Ha ha ha, that's my father, my father. Han Qinger shouted excitedly, and introduced him to the mighty figure beside her. Jiang Juesher shook his head helplessly. The mighty figures began to flatter Han Qinger. They might not care if it was in the past, but now, the divine might heavenly sage's arrival brought them great hope and surprise. They no longer cared about their identities. Come, divine might heavenly sage, let me see your strength. It'll be meaningless if you're as unbearable as the 9th chaos. The dark forbidden lord laughed crazily. His killing intent swept through the chaos like a violent wind. Hanju ignored the other party's killing intent. He personally advanced against the killing intent. The violent waves were pushed away by him, and the chaotic space kept collapsing. Huangergo. Hanju's voice suddenly sounded in Han Huang's ears, startling him so much that he looked up. The high and mighty Hanju looked straight ahead and didn't look at him. However, Han Huang was certain that he didn't hear wrongly. His father asked him to attack. Han Huang took a deep breath and immediately jumped over his father's shoulder. Huanger, I'll teach you a mystical power now. Hanju's voice sounded as a huge memory surged into Han Huang's mind. In an instant he was stunned. The dark forbidden lord was not far away when he opened his eyes again. So, Han Huang had extremely complicated emotions. He finally understood something. The mysterious power that had helped him become invincible in the past was actually his father's dermic powers. No wonder. Han Huang felt extremely ashamed. He thought that he was relying on himself, but he had always relied on his father. Prepare for battle. Hanju's voice sounded again, pulling his thoughts into reality. Han Huang's eyes suddenly widened. A figure appeared beside him. It was Han Ling, fourth sister. You're not dead? Han Huang asked in surprise. His voice trembled, afraid that he was dreaming. Han Ling smiled. Father revived me. The reason why I didn't attack was that you and your fellow disciples had a wisp of your souls with me. Hanju's voice entered the siblings' ears. Boom! The ultimate origin heaven seal erupted and appeared in front of him, blocking the endless power of darkness. A pillar of light descended from the sky and split into two. It landed on Han Huang and Han Ling, causing their auras to increase. Looks like the chaotic will chose you. In that case, represent the chaos to destroy the dark forbidden lord with me. Hanju's voice echoed in the void. This time, the other mighty figures also heard it. They looked at Han Huang and Han Ling differently. They all saw that the pillar of light descended from the supreme rules. Hanju was right. The chaotic will had indeed chosen them. All of you, use your strongest mystical powers and attack the dark forbidden lord together. Hanju's voice sounded again. The mighty figures came back to their senses. Through Hanju's majestic body, they attacked together. Thousands of powerful dermic powers circled around Hanju and attacked the Dark Forbidden Lord. Han Huang and Han Ling attacked as well. The mystical power Han Huang used was the ultimate origin soul oblivion. Han Ling fused 10 million emperor soldiers into the strongest emperor soldier. With Hanju's help, the dermic powers of thousands of mighty figures attached to this strongest emperor soldier. The 7 divine punishment light blades of the ultimate origin soul oblivion surrounded the strongest emperor soldier and attacked the Dark Forbidden Lord together. This was the strongest attack of the power of the chaos. The Dark Forbidden Lord struck out with his palm. Darkness devoured space and time. Countless resentful devils roared and attacked, like a black wall larger than chaos. Boom! The terrifying impact made the bodies of the mighty figures who had obtained the power of the Lord tremble and almost collapse. The chaos even shattered into several pieces. Even the blank domain cracked in space-time lightning interwove. That's all you've got? And you want to kill me? What a joke! What a huge joke! The Dark Forbidden Lord laughed wantonly, causing thousands of mighty figures to be moved. Could such power not kill the Dark Forbidden Lord? They could sense that this combined attack was extremely powerful. It was obvious from the shattered chaos. If the power of all the living beings in the chaos is insufficient, what if I join in? Just as the mighty figures were panicking, Hanju's voice sounded, pulling them into hope again. The divine might heavenly sage, who was as majestic as the Dark Forbidden Lord, raised his right hand and extended his index finger. That is, the hidden sect disciples were excited, especially the disciples from the reroll world, who were too familiar with this move. Back then, when the evil devils wreaked havoc in the mortal world, Hanju stood on the Cultivate diligently become immortal mountain and stood far away from the mortal world. He destroyed the evil devils with a finger and saved all living beings. Heaven Earth Mystic Yellow World Piercing Sword Finger. The sword finger that contained the power of the Creator Lord shot out. The sword chi wreaked havoc above the strongest emperor soldier and shattered the black wall that was larger than the chaos with an extremely domineering aura. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1125 Endless Era. Supreme Creation. Chapter 1125 Endless Era. Supreme Creation. The powerful Heaven Earth Mystic Yellow World Piercing Sword Finger pierced through the power of darkness. The Dark Forbidden Lord wanted to block it, but the layers of dark power he created were all pierced through. In the end, a huge hole appeared in his body. The blank domain behind tore open a long black crack. Just the width was enough to contain the chaos. Thousands of mighty figures were shocked. This was even more shocking than Shirtion's immeasurable destruction. Venerable's huge hand. How strong was the divine might heavenly sage? The Dark Forbidden Lord was not dispersed. He roared, "Divine might heavenly sage, you actually have such power. However, it's impossible to kill me. A Tao creator is undying and indestructible." Hanju snorted, "If I can't kill you, I'll suppress you forever." With that, a vast ultimate origin heaven seal appeared above the Dark Forbidden Lord. It was 10,000 times larger than the chaos, and descended with a world-destroying divine might. The Dark Forbidden Lord wanted to dodge, but strange lightning appeared around him. It was like a prison that wrapped around him, not allowing him to escape. Under the excited expressions of thousands of mighty figures, and the anticipation of all living beings, the ultimate origin heaven seal crushed the Dark Forbidden Lord into ashes. His soul struggled with all its might in the ultimate origin heaven seal. "Impossible! Impossible! Why do you have such power? Why don't you fight since you're so strong? Why keep a low profile?" The Dark Forbidden Lord roared hoarsely. He seemed to be at the end of the line. Hanju's voice sounded, "The Tao of cultivation is not about competition. I'm only fighting for myself, not external objects." These words left a deep impression on the mighty figures present. Under the gaze of all living beings, the Dark Forbidden Lord was sealed by the ultimate origin heaven seal. Hanju retracted it through the air, and the ultimate origin heaven seal disappeared. 4 jade pendants appeared in his hand. With a casual throw, the 4 jade pendants transformed into 4 Tao creators. Chaotic consciousness, Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable, formless transcendent deity, yin-yang purity nirvana deity. They had been sealed previously, but they didn't lose their will. They had been watching the battle. From the point of view of the Dark Forbidden Lord, the chaos was so weak, but they didn't expect that with Hanju's appearance, everything would be reversed. Even the 4 Tao creators were shocked. They still did not come back to their senses after reviving. Hanju looked down at the shattered chaos and said, "The chaos has been broken. The old order should pass. In that case, the endless era can begin." He waved his right hand and the chaotic space shattered. Heaven and earth scattered into the blank domain. In an instant, it was as if a force swept through the blank domain from the chaos and spread endlessly. The mighty figures clearly felt that the blank domain had changed. It was no longer as heavy as before. They were as relaxed as if they were in the chaos. Endless spirit chi filled the blank domain. The endless era had arrived. It's over? The mighty figures looked at each other in disbelief. The living beings scattered in all directions began to cheer. "Thank you for your help, divine might heavenly sage." The formless transcendent deity was the first to bow to Hanju. The other 3 Tao creators followed suit. Thousands of mighty figures knelt down to Hanju and looked at him fanatically. If not for Hanju, the great Tao immeasurable calamity would have ended with the destruction of the chaos, and they would have died. Hanju said, "The dead are already gone. The new era needs order and transcendence. From now on, you will control the prelude of the endless era. The other 3 Tao creators will assist and confer the creation of this great Tao immeasurable calamity. As for primordial despair, he has killed too many people and is sealed outside the order with the Dark Forbidden Lord. He will never transcend." Primordial despair let out a shrill cry of despair as it turned into dust under the gazes of all living beings. Han Huang frowned and turned his head away, unable to bear it. Han Ling noticed her second brother's expression and had a guess. Her eyes revealed pity. The great Tao immeasurable calamity has ended. After Hanju finished speaking, his body that was shining with divine light gradually faded until it disappeared. The chaotic consciousness, Shirtion's immeasurable destruction venerable, and the yin-yang purity nirvana deity, looked at the formless transcendent deity enviously. The formless transcendent deity was glad. He was also grateful to Hanju. He had bet correctly. Hanju was so magnanimous. The formless transcendent deity began to teach everyone. He condensed the creation of the great Tao immeasurable calamity and prepared to reward it. The so-called creation was actually the power of the chaos itself. The chaos no longer existed, and its power would be eaten by them. In the 3rd Tao field, Hanju returned and was surrounded by women. "Husband, you're really too powerful. That Dark Forbidden Lord is far inferior to you. Are there realms among Tao creators? Can you revive those dead living beings? I knew that you could easily kill the Dark Forbidden Lord. Don't let him revive. If have a way in the future, you still have to completely kill him and eliminate future trouble." All the women were excited. Even Xing Hongxian, who already knew that Hanju was invincible, was still very excited. They finally felt Hanju's power after witnessing the Dark Forbidden Lord's power. Hanju seemed to have used the help of all the living beings in the chaos, but the power he used was clearly many times stronger. They couldn't be compared at all. Hanju smiled. "All right, the calamity is over. The next endless era will be a new era. Everything is unknown. If you're so happy, you can go out for a walk." With that, he walked into the Taoist temple. The women agreed immediately and left the Tao field under Xing Hongshuan's lead to visit Han Huang and the others. Shani and the 10 divine stars were also allowed out by Hanju's clone, making them cheer. Inside the Taoist temple, Hanju sat on the lotus throne and opened his right palm. 2 auras appeared, one black and one purple. The black was the 9th chaos remnant soul, and the purple was primordial despair. Hanju actually didn't hate the 9th chaos. It was a pity that such an expert died like this, so he chose to throw the 9th chaos into the ultimate origin heavenly prison. With the cultivation of the 9th chaos, it would probably take billions of years to completely enslave him. As for primordial despair, in order for him to live better, Hanju decided to let him reincarnate and awaken his intelligence in the cycle of reincarnation. Hanju blew gently, and the purple chi in his palm blew away. He looked at the blank domain. Although there were only remnants of the chaos in the world of the blank domain, he could already see the torrent of history of a vast era surging over. It was unstoppable. The great Tao immeasurable calamity ended. The dark forbidden lord and his subordinate, the evil fiend primordial despair, shattered the chaos. Then, they were sealed by the immeasurable merit divine might heavenly sage. After that, the endless era arrived. This past was forever engraved in the long river of history. It was passed down from generation to generation. The Tao Creator realm became the highest goal of cultivation. The divine might heavenly sage became the leader of the creators, the supreme existence that all beings believed in. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 11:26 Grandfather and Grandson. Chapter 11:26 Grandfather and Grandson. 100 million years later, the blank domain became lively and colorful. It was no longer as pale as before. Countless worlds were distributed. From the great Tao Supremes to the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals, they were all creating worlds and adding a hint of vitality to the endless era. In a great world, in an inconspicuous small world among the billions of small worlds. Under the blue sky, green mountains rose and fell. Hanju sat at the edge of the cliff halfway up the mountain. Fog filled the air ahead, and the tall mountain opposite was faintly discernible. The supreme treasure on his body shed its divine light. He wore a white robe that fluttered in the wind. His gray hair fluttered in the air. His face was still young and handsome. Coupled with his gray hair, he could be said to have white hair and a youthful look. He had an immortal aura. I wonder how long it will take to surpass the Creator Lord realm. Fortunately, as I cultivate, my origin lifespan will continue to increase. Hanju opened his eyes and looked at the sky-covering fog ahead. Many changes occurred after the endless era began. All living beings only saw a truly endless world, and what he saw was the change in the basic rules of the blank domain. Box novel. C0M. All living beings spread out a blank domain, and countless tiny creations scattered, causing the basic rules to produce some new creations. For some creations, Hanju needed some time to understand. Perhaps this was a self-defense ability of the blank domain. Just like the primordial fiend celestial and the ninth chaos, it would subconsciously create trouble for the invincible and push for its development. Hanju could only control the basic rules now and couldn't truly own them. True domination was that he could create and destroy them at will. Perhaps a second creator lord would appear in the future. What Hanju had to do was maintain his cultivation heart and continue to become stronger. He could never stop, and he also could not block the path of his descendants to consolidate his status. The failure experience of the first two invincible people had already proved that this path was not feasible. Of course, it was acceptable to relax occasionally, just like now. Ha ha ha. I know how to control a sword. A slightly childish laugh sounded. A youth flew out of the mist on a wooden sword. He wore clothes made of brown beast skin and had a slightly dark face. He looked to be 14 or 15 years old, but his facial features were sharp and bright. The youth stood on the wooden sword and swayed, as if he would fall at any moment. Hanju looked at him and smiled. After 10,000 years, this kid's personality is always like this in every life. It's interesting. It seems that even the Fusang tree's space-time reincarnation can't erase his nature. The primordial fiend celestial's nature is still powerful. Hanju looked at the youth and thought silently. The youth's name in this life was Chu Xiaoqi. He was born into an ordinary family in the mortal world. Because he was the seventh and youngest, he was given the name Xiaoqi by his parents. Chu Xiaoqi had yearned to cultivate since he was young, so he ran away from home when he was 13 and wandered the world. In the end, it was naturally very bleak. First, his luggage was snatched by bandits, and later, he almost died in the mouth of a beast. He stumbled and wandered for a year. When he was being hunted down by a certain spirit monster, he fell off a cliff and met Hanju, an immortal. The two of them had already interacted for half a year. Han Ju taught Chu Xiaoqi the basic cultivation technique and the flying sword technique. After a month, Chu Xiaoqi barely learned them. His potential was average, and his soul was still sealed. So his potential completely depended on his reincarnation. Most of Chu Xiaoqi's previous 10,000 lifetimes were mortals. He had lived mediocre lives and had also cultivated. The highest he had reached was the pseudo-sage realm. He had just stepped into the pseudo-sage realm when he was surrounded and killed by his enemies. This matter was still discussed by his descendants in that world. Of course, it was not a good story but a joke. Chu Xiaoqi's personality was extremely out of place. He was lively most of the time, but occasionally, he was also very gloomy. He was completely different from primordial despair. After flying for 5 minutes, Chu Xiaoqi's remaining spirit energy was exhausted. He landed beside Han Ju and lay on the ground, panting heavily and sweating. Han Ju found it funny. He could clearly lie down, but he insisted on kneeling. He supported himself with both hands and stuck out his tongue like a dog. However, this posture was somewhat similar to primordial despair. Han Ju didn't appear in Chu Xiaoqi's life in the previous reincarnations. This was the first time. Immortal, how long can your flying sword technique last? It must be a long time. Are you a golden core cultivator? Legend has it that golden core cultivators can fly. How long have you been here? Ah, I'm so hungry. Immortal, can you make a roasted chicken for me? I'm too tired and don't want to hunt by myself. I don't want to fast yet. Chu Xiaoqi chattered nonstop. He was clearly tired, but he refused to shut up. Han Ju smiled and didn't say anything. He waved his right hand, and a fragrant roasted chicken appeared in front of the kid. Chu Xiaoqi's eyes lit up. He immediately became lively and began to tear the roasted chicken apart. Han Ju wanted to refuse and let Chu Xiaoqi rely on himself, but his heart softened. Strangely, he couldn't be bothered by his children's suffering. Instead, he doted on his reincarnated grandson. Primordial Despair's life was indeed bitter. Although he had committed many sins and deserved to die, no one had taught him since he was born. Even before he died, he was very puzzled that his father did not help him. Primordial Despair did not have high intelligence and did not understand communication, but in his heart, Han Huang was his father. After Chu Xiaoqi was full, he lay on the ground and stretched. Then he continued to chatter and fell asleep. Han Ju waved his hand, and a white robe covered Chu Xiaoqi. He closed his eyes again and continued cultivating. 2 years later, Chu Xiaoqi had successfully reached the foundation establishment realm, and his body was much stronger. He was flying on his sword in the mountains and plains. He kept casting spells with both hands and chased after a bird demon. The bird demon was like a golden eagle. Its feathers were golden, and its wingspan was 10 feet wide. Chu Xiaoqi's spells landed on the bird demon, causing its feathers to fly and blood to flow. In the end, the bird demon's wings were broken. With a cry, it fell into the cliff. Chu Xiaoqi took out a rope. It was a piece of equipment that stretched out at will and tied the bird demon into a ball. Then, he carried it and landed in front of Han Ju. Hee, Grandpa, am I powerful? Chu Xiaoqi smiled proudly. He placed his hands on his hips and looked extremely arrogant. He called him Grandpa because Han Ju didn't want to have a master-disciple relationship with him. And he couldn't always call him an immortal. Not bad, Han Ju said without opening his eyes. Chu Xiaoqi curled his lips and began to deal with the bird demon. After a while, in order to survive, the bird demon acknowledged Chu Xiaoqi as its master and was named Chu Xiaoniao. Han Ju's face twitched upon hearing this name. Night fell. Chu Xiaoqi hesitated as he sat beside him. Han Ju opened his eyes and looked at the night sky. A shooting star flashed past, causing a hint of surprise to flash across his eyes. Why was he in this mortal world? Grandpa, I want to go home and take a look. Can I? Chu Xiaoqi asked softly. This immortal had taught him for so long, but he didn't ask for anything in return. Therefore, he felt that he would let the immortal down by leaving. What if the immortal did not agree? Yes, of course. Han Ju's answer stunned Chu Xiaoqi. He had thought of all sorts of answers, but didn't expect the other party to agree so casually. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 11:27 Difference between Immortal and Mortal. Chapter 11:27 Difference between Immortal and Mortal. You agreed? Don't worry. I'll definitely return to be filial to you. Chu Xiaoqi was very excited and spoke respectfully. He had always been rude in the past. Hanju smiled and nodded. Chu Xiaoqi decided to return after dawn. He was very excited tonight. He looked forward to returning home. He wanted to prove to his family that his choice was not wrong. He was not daydreaming or possessed. That night, Chu Xiaoqi struggled until almost dawn, and only woke up at noon. Chu Xiaoqi kowtowed before leaving. Hanju kept his eyes closed and continued cultivating, ignoring him. For some reason, Chu Xiaoqi's heart ached. Grandfather was definitely the person who treated him the best. He was even better than his parents. At home, he had too many siblings. His parents were busy making a living, and did not dote on him much. Some of his elder brothers even bullied him. Chu Xiaoqi walked to the edge of the cliff, and prepared to ride his sword. He couldn't help but turn his head and say, "Grandpa, do you want to walk with me?" He was filled with anticipation, but he knew that it was impossible. Box an oval. C0M. How could immortals be so easy? All right, Hanju replied and stood up. Chu Xiaoqi's eyes widened in disbelief. Really? Yes. Don't you want to cultivate? The world is vast. I can cultivate anywhere. Great. Chu Xiaoqi was extremely excited. He also wanted to introduce Hanju to his family. Hanju let Chu Xiaoqi fly on his sword while he rode a cloud. He sat on the cloud and continued cultivating. Damn, Grandpa, why didn't you teach me this move? Chu Xiaoqi's eyes widened again and shouted. This kid always liked to glare, making Hanju feel he was very similar to the hot-blooded male protagonists he had seen in his previous life. Although he had become a creator lord, Hanju still felt that he still had humanity in his bones. Different races were ultimately different from invincible people born from experience. As he got older, he missed the times when he was weak. It was just that humans were like this. The other races were not like this. The nature of humans was to value relationships, no matter what. Hanju didn't want to completely separate himself from this. He was him. He wanted to be himself, and not try to be like other existences. Along the way, Chu Xiaoqi became talkative again. Grandpa, do you have family? Yes. Where are they? They're very, very far away. So far that you might never reach them in your lifetime. Sorry. Hee. Chu Xiaoqi thought that Hanju's family was all dead, and knew that he had said something wrong. He hurriedly changed the topic. He began to introduce his family. Actually, he did not like his family much. He just wanted to go back and prove himself. Chu Xiaoqi kept talking, and Hanju listened silently. The two of them flew to the horizon together. Chu Xiaoqi's carefree laughter echoed in the sky. Figures gathered in a vast palace. The weakest was a pseudo-sage. Standing at the front were 3 primordial chaos sages. Their eyes were filled with reverence as they looked in one direction. In front of them sat a figure in the position of the master of this world. It was Huang Zuantian. Huang Zuantian obtained a great creation after the great Tao immeasurable calami ended. The name of the primordial fiend celestial shocked the endless era. His cultivation level was considered top-notch below the Tao creator realm. The living beings present did not know his identity. The difference in status was too great, and they were not qualified to know. However, Huang Zuantian was too strong. Just the pressure was enough to make sages lose their will to resist. The world lord was a gray-robed Taoist. He frowned and asked, "Senior, did you find what you wanted?" Huang Zuantian opened his eyes. In an instant, everyone in the hall lowered their heads, not daring to look at him. No, but perhaps in the future. All of you, help me pay attention. One day, a talented person will appear in this world. He is bloodthirsty, and will bring calamity to all living beings. It's not only your world. If that day comes, you can use this token to contact me. With that, Huang Zuantian vanished. A black token floated above the throne. A strange figure was carved on it. Everyone looked at each other. Huang Zuantian leaving just like that made them heave a sigh of relief. But his words cast a shadow on everyone's hearts. This world was about to face a calamity? They couldn't deduce it, but they didn't dare to ignore Huang Zuantian's words. Chu Xiaoqi's home was in a town. The nearest city was 100 miles away. Most of the people in this town hunted and fished for a living. Hanju followed Chu Xiaoqi home after entering the town. Chu Xiaoqi's parents were already 50 years old. His father had a hunched back and held a walking stick. He looked 10 years older than his actual age. His parents were very excited to see Chu Xiaoqi. His mother cried in joy, but in less than 10 breaths of time, his father began to chase after her. The two sisters at home also came out, and were very surprised by his return. As for the three brothers, they were still hunting in the forest. After a while, Chu Xiaoqi introduced Hanju to his family. Their eyes locked on him the moment they saw him. Hanju had white hair, but his face was extremely young. They had never seen such a handsome man. Chu Xiaoqi's two sisters were so shy that they blushed and didn't dare to stare at him. "Thank you for saving him, immortal," Chu Xiaoqi's father, Chu Dezhu, said with a trembling voice. He didn't believe that Hanju was an immortal, but he had saved his son after all. Chu Xiaoqi suddenly leaped, and a wooden sword appeared under his feet. He began to circle above the courtyard and cried out, attracting the attention of his neighbors. Chu Dezhu and the others were dumbfounded in disbelief. The neighbors exclaimed. Hanju looked at Chu Xiaoqi with a smile. This was how youth should be. He's really unlike me, but very similar to his father. Soon, even the mayor was alarmed. The news that Chu Xiaoqi had become a cultivator spread very quickly. Even Hanju was sought after. He wasn't angry at their enthusiasm. Fortunately, Chu Xiaoqi was not a fool, and asked his mother to arrange a room for Hanju to cultivate in, and stay away from trouble. Hanju hid in the room, and started cultivating. In the evening, Chu Xiaoqi's three brothers returned. They were shocked to know that he had succeeded in seeking immortality. That night, they knelt in front of Hanju's house, and wanted to acknowledge him as their master. But he rejected them. In the following days, Chu Xiaoqi publicized his spells everywhere, causing the entire town to be extremely lively. He even alerted the nearby cities, and the city lord personally came to receive the immortals. Hanju didn't appear, but Chu Xiaoqi handled it well. The city lord even wanted to marry his daughter to him. Such a fast pace made Chu Xiaoqi realize the influence of cultivation on mortals. Another night, Chu Xiaoqi came to visit Hanju and complained crazily. That city lord's daughter looks like a pig. She also wants to get close to me. I'm so angry. She's not as good looking as the little flower in town. With her figure tsk. A wretched smile appeared on his face as he spoke. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1128 Mortal Cultivation Path. Chapter 1128 Mortal Cultivation Path. Facing Chu Xiaoqi, who was smiling like a pig, Hanju asked, "Then, are you willing to marry Xiaohua?" Like young girls, it was normal for youths to yearn for love. Chu Xiaoqi scratched his head. How can I cultivate if I get married? In the future, won't I have to help her cultivate? If her potential is not good, she might even drag me down and distract me. No, I shouldn't get married. There are many beauties in this world. Hanju chuckled. You just like her beauty? Nonsense. I haven't even interacted much with them. How can I fall in love with them at first sight? As long as you're happy. Grandpa, how did you get married back then? Chu Xiaoqi sat beside Hanju and asked curiously. Hanju smiled. Back then, I was a herb garden servant and an outer disciple of a cultivation sect. I happened to meet a female cultivator. He told the story of him and Xing Hongxian. Xing Hongxian was a spy, but she met Hanju by chance and fell in love with him at first sight. After that, she pestered him every day. She also repeatedly gave him treasures. Such a story fascinated Chu Xiaoqi. He had always heard that men chased after women, but it was rare for women to chase after men. He couldn't help but look at Hanju. Such looks were indeed liked by girls. Even his two sisters secretly asked him about Hanju. Box novel. C0M. Chu Xiaoqi suddenly clapped his hands and said in shock. I've decided. I can't marry easily in the future. I want beauties to pursue me. I'll marry whoever is the most sincere. Hanju found it funny, and didn't discourage him. Who could say for sure about the future? Hanju could see the future, but he wouldn't look easily. That would make things meaningless. He only needed to be vigilant and wary of the future. As long as there was a possibility that the future threatened him, he would check it. He had such foresight as the Creator Lord. Of course, he still had to take the time to check his fate every once in a while. Grandpa, aren't you curious about my other brother? Chu Xiaoqi changed the topic. Currently, other than Chu Xiaoqi, there were 2 sisters and 3 brothers in the family. They were still missing one. Hanju asked. If you want to say it, say it. Chu Xiaoqi chuckled. I want to cultivate because of my big brother. I've never seen him since I was young. He also went out to search for immortals when he was very young and never returned. A few years ago, he replied that he had joined the Darkness sect. We all thought that he had been deceived. Darkness sect. Hanju was not surprised to hear this name. The Darkness sect collapsed and began to disperse after the Great Tao Immeasurable Calamity ended. The Tao creators didn't kill all their members, because Hanju had told the formless transcendent deity that there was white, and there was black. If he killed the Darkness sect, other sects would appear. It was better to keep the remaining members, pave the way for another Great Tao Immeasurable Calamity in the future. And instead of choosing the disciples of the various families, it was better to let the evil descendants continue to be evil. Of course, Hanju was still thinking for sure Dudao, Jing Tiangong and the others. The formless transcendent deity also felt that it made sense. Many mighty figures of the Darkness sect were killed. Only a few people related to Hanju survived. From this point of view, Hanju was very selfish. But so what if he was selfish? He was the strongest. He decided everything. Who had the right to blame him? It was only a rule set to protect the same level of benefits. Chu Xiaoqi told Hanju about his brother for a while, and only left late at night. Chu Xiaoqi was still glorious in the following days. He didn't even have time to cultivate. He either helped the hunters kill spirits and beasts, or taught the children in the town to cultivate. Hanju didn't stop him. He would occasionally go out for a walk. At first, the people were surprised by his appearance, but later, they got used to it. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. Chu Xiaoqi found Hanju again and said, Grandpa, I want to cultivate. Let's leave. Hanju didn't even open his eyes. Should we part for now or forever? Chu Xiaoqi was stunned. He fell silent, and then understood what Hanju meant. He was different from mortals after becoming a cultivator. His family did not have the potential to cultivate. If he stayed, not only would it delay him, but he might also cause trouble for his family in the future. There was also the parting of life and death. It was even more exciting. After a long while, Chu Xiaoqi clenched his fists. Forever. At dawn, Chu Xiaoqi left a letter. Before leaving the town, he even went to see Xiaohua. In the end, he severed his mortal thoughts and left with Hanju. Grandpa, should we go back and cultivate? I don't have to go back. I can walk around. All right. I also want to see if the world is exciting. Do the cultivation sects you mentioned really exist? Do you want to join a sect? It's a good opportunity to train. What will happen to you then? I'll find a place nearby to hide and cultivate. Whoa, Grandpa, you're the best. I'm so touched that I'm crying. I'll kidnap a beautiful nun for you when I join the sect. She's definitely the most beautiful fairy in the sect. Hee. One rode a cloud and the other on a sword. They flew side by side and laughed as they flew towards the horizon. 3 months later, they came to a cultivation sect. Hanju asked Chu Xiaoqi to join them, while he opened a cave abode in the nearby forest. I'll only teach you cultivation. I won't interfere if you encounter danger. You have to rely on yourself. Hanju warned him before leaving. Hanju couldn't help but look at Chu Xiaoqi as he sat in the cave abode. Chu Xiaoqi was already at the Foundation Establishment realm, so it was naturally not difficult for him to enter the sect. The most powerful expert of this sect, the sect master, was only at the Soul Formation realm. Chi Refinement Foundation Establishment, Golden Core, Nascent Soul Soul Formation, Void Amalgamation Fusion, Tribulation Transcendence Mahayana. Hanju couldn't help but recall his cultivation years. Chu Xiaoqi first became an outer sect disciple. With his cheerful personality, he quickly made a group of good friends. The cultivation technique Hanju taught him was stronger than the cultivation techniques in the mortal world. Therefore, in less than 3 years, Chu Xiaoqi passed the intersect assessment and was chosen by an elder. The elder was very curious about his cultivation technique, but everyone had their own opportunities, so he did not force him to hand it over. Chu Xiaoqi began to encounter trouble after entering the intersect. One of his brothers had his Dao companion snatched by a genius. Later, he was murdered while training outside. Chu Xiaoqi was furious, and also became enemies with that prodigy. This prodigy was the personal disciple of the sect master. But Hanju could tell that he was actually an illegitimate son. On the surface, the sect master did not care about this matter, but if it really reached the point of no return, Chu Xiaoqi would definitely die. Hanju looked forward to Chu Xiaoqi's next performance. How would he overcome this obstacle? However, Grandpa, someone wants to kill me. Save me. Chu Xiaoqi came to visit Hanju and cried on his lap. He was clearly grown up, but he was deliberately acting like a child. Hanju could clearly tell that this kid was not really crying. He was just pretending. Furthermore, no one was chasing after him. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1129 Worldly Affairs. Chapter 1129 Worldly Affairs, that's good. Just die. Hanju stroked Chu Xiaoqi's head and smiled benevolently, startling him so much that he suddenly looked up. No tears could be seen on this kid's face. He pretended not to care at all. Chu Xiaoqi said aggrievedly, "Who will be filial to you if I die? You've nurtured me for so many years. You definitely won't let me die casually." "Not necessarily. I've taught countless disciples." "Wow, Grandpa, what's your cultivation level? Are you like our sect master?" "No, no one noticed you hiding here. Your cultivation level is definitely stronger than our sect master." "My cultivation has nothing to do with you. Cultivate well. This hatred has nothing to do with you. Why get involved? That won't do. In life, you have to dare to love and hate. He killed my brother. I hate him. I have to kill him." Chu Xiaoqi said indignantly. His expression turned sinister, inadvertently showing a hint of primordial despair. Hanju smiled. "Then kill him. Don't look for me." "I can't. Grandpa, teach me a spell. I can't defeat him with my current strength." Chu Xiaoqi stood up and started to massage Hanju's shoulders and back. His expression was fawning, and he didn't care about his reputation at all. Box a novel. C0M Hanju enjoyed it and smiled. "Then I'll teach you a mystical power." "Mystical power?" Chu Xiaoqi's body shook. He had heard of mystical powers after joining the sect. They appeared in ancient books. They were superior to spells and could only be learned by immortals. Hanju smiled and said, "This is the heavenly punishment ghost deity sword. With one strike, it can shock the world and make ghosts and gods weep. Don't use it unless you are in a desperate situation." Heavenly punishment ghost deity sword. Chu Xiaoqi's eyes widened. He immediately knelt down and started to kowtow, thanking Hanju for his guidance. Hanju used the barrier and made the space in the cave abode 100 miles wide, making it convenient for Chu Xiaoqi to cultivate her mystical power. Chu Xiaoqi was shocked. Hanju's image in his heart increased infinitely. It seemed that he had still underestimated his grandfather. Could he really be an immortal? Several months later, under Chu Xiaoqi's relentless cultivation, he finally learned the heavenly punishment ghost deity sword. The world-shattering power made him unable to stop and his blood boiled. Chu Xiaoqi left excitedly after cultivating the mystical power. Hanju also continued cultivating. During the time he accompanied Chu Xiaoqi, Hanju felt that time passed very slowly. It was longer than the past 100 million years. This was probably an experience. Hanju enjoyed his current life. There was less fighting and killing. Participating in the lives of others was also a form of training and a feeling. Chu Xiaoqi's comprehension of the sword Dao had increased greatly after learning the heavenly punishment ghost deity sword. In just a short year, he had learned all the sword Dao spells that the disciples of the sect could learn. His reputation could be said to have risen greatly. Even the sect master had personally received him. Chu Xiaoqi did not act recklessly. Facing the prodigy of the enemy, he did not argue and kept looking for an opportunity. He did not complain to the sect master. Countless tragedies happened in a cultivation sect. The morals of mortals did not work at all. As long as they did not betray the sect only valued cultivation and potential. Hanju paid attention to Chu Xiaoqi as he cultivated. Chu Xiaoqi would visit him every once in a while. Other than him, no one else knew of Hanju's existence. Chu Xiaoqi was also puzzled. Was this place really difficult to find? However, as his cultivation level increased, he realized that it might be because his grandfather had allowed him to find it. 10 years later, Chu Xiaoqi was outside killing the prodigy. Because other fellow disciples saw it, the news quickly spread to the sect. The sect master was furious and issued a kill order. For a time, Chu Xiaoqi fled in all directions in a sorry state. He didn't even have a chance to go back and find Hanju. He was being hunted down. A woman was accompanying him. She was the younger sister of Chu Xiaoqi's brother in the sect. Her name was Tang Wan. Tang Wan's biological brother was the brother the prodigy had killed. Chu Xiaoqi had taken good care of her, and it was all thanks to her seducing that prodigy that he managed to kill him. In the mountains, Chu Xiaoqi flew on his sword. His black hair fluttered. At this moment, he had already lost his childishness, and his skin had become fair. He had a handsome face and cold eyes. He had the aura of a sword immortal. Behind him was a young woman with an oval face and a sweet appearance. She gently held Chu Xiaoqi's waist. Tang Wan leaned her head on Chu Xiaoqi's back and whispered, "Brother Xiaoqi, where are we going? Where can we escape to?" Chu Xiaoqi replied, "I'll find a place to settle you down and find an elder of mine. He can protect us. Why don't you go directly? He's still in the sect." Tang Wan was silent. She thought that Chu Xiaoqi's elder was a sect elder. How could an elder compare to the sect master? At this moment, a sword chi crossed mountains and rivers, devouring 10,000 miles. Chu Xiaoqi subconsciously turned around. That sword chi was too fast. He couldn't dodge in time. Boom! They were overturned by the sword chi and fell to the ground. If not for Chu Xiaoqi twisting the flying sword in time, the two of them would have been instantly crushed. Chu Xiaoqi wanted to hug Tang Wan, but a talisman landed on him. Lightning interwove, and he could not move. He watched as Tang Wan fell into the forest. His eyes instantly turned red. Damn it! Chu Xiaoqi fell onto the cliff outside the forest. He felt that his body was about to fall apart. He had fallen from 1,000 meters in the air, and was even injured. He couldn't take it even with his golden core cultivation. A figure slowly descended and landed above Chu Xiaoqi. This person wore a green robe and a jade crown. He held a horsetail whisk and a blade appeared in it. "Chu Xiaoqi, you harmed your fellow disciples. You must die," the green-robed Taoist said expressionlessly. He looked down at Chu Xiaoqi with an extremely indifferent gaze. Chu Xiaoqi got up with difficulty and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The talisman on his body turned into dust and dissipated. He first used his divine sense to find Tang Wan and discovered that she was lying in a grass patch. She was covered in blood, and her body was covered in branches. She looked extremely miserable and appeared dead. "Then why didn't you kill me?" Chu Xiaoqi asked. He tried his best to calm down. The green-robed Taoist narrowed his eyes. "Hand over your cultivation technique and mystical power. I can let you die a quick death. If the sect master catches you, you will definitely beg for death. He will extract your soul and sacrifice your Dharma treasure, so you can never reincarnate." That Chu Xiaoqi grinned. "You want to learn? All right, I'll teach you." The green-robed Taoist landed and said, "I'm at the nascent soul realm. Don't play tricks. I'll save that woman first. But if you dare to tease me, her outcome will be even worse than yours." Chu Xiaoqi ignored him and walked towards the forest to check on Tang Wan. At the same time, on a cliff 100 miles away, Hanju stood at the edge of the cliff looking at this scene. He didn't move. The green-robed Taoist and Chu Xiaoqi didn't sense his existence. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1130 Unparalleled Dharma Star. Chapter 1130 Unparalleled Dharma Star. Chu Xiaoqi's cultivation technique. was only casually created by Hanju. But in the mortal world, it was definitely a top-notch cultivation technique. Without the help of Hanju's Tao voice, it was very difficult for ordinary people to comprehend it. The green-robed Taoist cultivated for several days but failed. He was not in a hurry. Not far away, by a small river, Chu Xiaoqi was helping Tang Wan clean the wound on her back. Tang Wan covered her chest with her clothes. Her originally snow-white back was covered in crisscrossing scars. It was a ghastly sight. Tang Wan used her voice transmission technique to communicate with him. Are we going to surrender just like that? Let's wait and see. His cultivation level is too high. We can't resist. Isn't your mystical power able to cross realms to kill enemies? Boxenovel. C0M, I was bragging to you. It's fine to cross two minor realms, but the other party is a nascent soul realm cultivator. Fine. The two of them fell silent, each thinking about something. Chu Xiaoqi felt bitter. I wonder how Grandpa is. Oh Grandpa, your grandson is about to die. In Chu Xiaoqi's opinion, as long as his grandfather took action, this nascent soul cultivator would definitely die. However, this place was too far from his grandfather's cave abode. His grandfather would definitely not be able to save him in time. No, he had to think of a way to save himself. Chu Xiaoqi thought silently, and began to think of a way. He couldn't win. He could only scheme. How to be sinister was another problem. In the evening, the green-robed Taoist called him. It turned out that the green-robed Taoist felt that this cultivation technique was too difficult, and needed his help. Chu Xiaoqi was overjoyed. There was a way. He began to mess with some of the steps of the cultivation technique. To prevent himself from being discovered, he modified it bit by bit. The green-robed Taoist was stunned by the profoundness of this cultivation technique. There were too many questions, so he did not notice the details. 100 miles away, Hanju laughed as he saw through Chu Xiaoqi's tricks. This kid was really dramatic. Since he had nothing to do, Hanju decided to draw a creation heavens chosen. He accumulated the creation heavens chosen every 10 million years. Now, he had accumulated 46 attempts. Activating the creation heavens chosen. A random great creation will appear among your descendants. Your descendant Chenju has awakened an innate great creation unparalleled Dharma star. Unparalleled Dharma star. Innate great creation. It can allow one's dharmic powers to be endless and never dry up. His dharmic powers were endless. It was not bad, but it could only be said to be good in the early stages. When his cultivation level reached a certain realm, it could also have such an effect. He silently deduced that Chenju was a straight-line distance away from this world formed by 10 million chaos. It seemed that it would be very difficult for him to encounter Chu Xiaoqi in this life. This time, Hanju didn't plan to nurture the creation heavens chosen, and let Chenju let nature take its course. He would draw and unleash a huge explosion when he gathered 100 attempts. Then, he would gather them all and nurture them into his Creator Lord's army. There were still 55 attempts left to accumulate. He had to wait for 550 million years to pass. Hanju's gaze landed on Chu Xiaoqi again. How many times would Chu Xiaoqi reincarnate in the next 500 million years? However, Hanju couldn't bear it as he looked at him. Forget it. He had reincarnated enough. It was time to escape the pain of reincarnation. Hanju smiled and closed his eyes. 2 months later, under Chu Xiaoqi's schemes, the green-robed Taoist's cultivation state became more and more amiss. He realized that something was wrong, and immediately found trouble with Chu Xiaoqi, threatening him. Chu Xiaoqi knelt down without any backbone. He was terrified and tears and snot flowed down his face. Tang Wan saw this scene, making the green-robed Taoist feel that he was not faking it. After all, men cared about their reputation. He had to put down his worries. He had no choice. He had been stuck at the nascent soul realm for too long, and his lifespan was coming to an end. He really needed a top-notch cultivation technique that could surpass the nascent soul realm. Another month passed. The green-robed Taoist developed a mental demon. A murderous aura surrounded his brows like a demon. He found Chu Xiaoqi again. This time, he even cast a spell to torture him. Chu Xiaoqi cried that he had also cultivated like this. This time, Chu Xiaoqi even peed. His pants were drenched, and he had no dignity. The green-robed Taoist's suspicion increased. Could it be that their cultivation techniques conflicted? He was really unwilling to give up just like that. What would happen in the future if he missed this opportunity? No. He couldn't listen blindly. The green-robed Taoist's eyes turned ruthless. He stopped Chu Xiaoqi and began to use his secret technique. He split a portion his soul and possessed him, occupying his memories. After Chu Xiaoqi was frozen, he knew that something was wrong. He despaired. Damn it! After acting for so long and losing all his face in front of Tang Wan, he still couldn't escape death. If he had known earlier, he would have fought head-on and died with dignity. Tang Wan drew her sword and stabbed at the green-robed Taoist's back. However, she was sent flying by his dermic powers and vomited blood before fainting on the ground. Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators could not withstand a single blow from a nascent soul realm cultivator. The green-robed Taoist's eyes emitted a green light. His soul flew out and entered the space between Chu Xiaoqi's eyebrows. In an instant, Chu Xiaoqi was stunned. His shoulders drooped and he lost consciousness. Several breaths later, the green-robed Taoist trembled. His eyes widened and he said with a trembling voice, "What is it?" Boom! The green-robed Taoist's body exploded, along with his nascent soul. His soul dissipated into the world. Chu Xiaoqi fell to the ground. Wisps of blood qi appeared and condensed into a terrifying shadow. It was primordial despair. However, the shadow quickly dissipated as if it had never been there. 100 miles away, another person appeared beside Han Ju. It was Xing Hongxian. It's really him. Xing Hongxian clicked her tongue in wonder. Half a month ago, she was bored and visited Han Ju. She wanted to go out and travel together, so Han Ju moved her to this world. Han Ju didn't hide anything from her. Xing Hongxian was enlightened. No wonder primordial despair gave her a strange feeling. Han Ju didn't kill him after that. So that was the case. This kid's personality is completely different from yours and your children's. Xing Hongxian sighed. Chu Xiaoqi had actually pretended to the point of peeing his pants. It had broadened her horizons. Han Ju smiled. It's more interesting if it's different. You plan to accompany him more? Yes, let's spend 10,000 years accompanying him. TSK. I didn't expect you to like your descendants across so many generations. In that case, I'll wander around the vicinity for a few years, and come find you after some time. Xing Hongxian covered her mouth and laughed. Han Ju had no objections, and the two of them parted for the time being. Han Ju approached Chu Xiaoqi and waved his right hand. He changed his clothes and sat by the river to cultivate. 2 hours later, Tang Wan woke up first. She was shocked upon seeing Han Ju. She hurriedly raised her sword and prepared to fight. Han Ju ignored her. Tang Wan didn't dare to act rashly. She hurriedly came to Chu Xiaoqi's side and checked his condition. Chu Xiaoqi also woke up as she checked on him. The moment this kid woke up, he screamed and cursed the green-robed Taoist. Like a despicable traitor in the market, he used all sorts of dirty words. He was pleasantly surprised to see Han Ju. He pushed Tang Wan away and pounced in front of him, wailing, "Grandpa, you're finally here. You have to avenge me. I was tortured by him. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com." Chapter 1131 Dream of a Deity. Chapter 1131 Dream of a Deity. He's already dead. Han Ju smiled. Chu Xiaoqi looked up at him in surprise. "Grandpa, you killed him?" "No, it was you. He was already dead when I arrived. He should have suffered from qi deviation and forcefully possessed someone. He died by his own hands." "I see. Then I killed him. Ha ha ha. I set him up to suffer from qi deviation." Chu Xiaoqi turned to look at Tang Wan, who was walking over from not far away. He smiled proudly and said, "Waner, I was acting earlier to make him let down his guard." Tang Wan nodded. "I believe you're crying, but I don't think you can pee your pants for an act. I can't do it anyway." Chu Xiaoqi was embarrassed and did not know how to refute. Tang Wan took the initiative to bow to Han Ju. She introduced herself a little nervously. Han Ju smiled kindly, but with his appearance, his smile was not kind but gentle. Tang Wan blushed. Chu Xiaoqi widened his eyes and shouted, Damn it, Wanner. Don't tell me you want to be my grandmother? That won't do. What nonsense are you saying, Boxenovel? C0M Tang Wan was furious. She naturally didn't fall in love with Han Ju at first sight. However, he was so handsome and unfathomable, so she naturally couldn't face him casually. Han Ju said angrily, "Don't go around acknowledging your grandmother. Your grandmother just left not long ago. She might be eavesdropping from somewhere. Be careful she doesn't deal with you." Hearing this, Chu Xiaoqi hurriedly jumped up and looked around, kowtowing in different directions. Tang Wan rolled her eyes. This fellow was very imposing when he was serious, but he was usually very unreasonable. He was simply a freak. Han Ju smiled. "All right, don't cause trouble. Rest well. There won't be any danger nearby for the time being." Chu Xiaoqi stood up and nodded excitedly. It felt good to survive. For the next period of time, Han Ju sat by the river. Tang Wan and Chu Xiaoqi cultivated not far away, and occasionally practiced their spells. Tang Wan was very curious about Han Ju. She asked how they met when the two of them went out to find herbs. After knowing the process of their encounter, Tang Wan felt that Han Ju must be an expert. That green-robed Taoist had definitely died in Han Ju's hands. However, Chu Xiaoqi did not think of this. This fellow was really naive. In the blink of an eye, more than half a year passed. Chu Xiaoqi was worried that the sect would find them, and suggested that they change locations. Han Ju had no objections to this. To him, it didn't matter where he went. He couldn't be bothered to argue with them. Just like that, Han Ju and Chu Xiaoqi embarked on the path of the world again. But with one more person this time. Chu Xiaoqi and Tang Wan flew on their swords, while Han Ju rode a cloud as usual. This method surprised Tang Wan. Wasn't that the legendary immortal? Tang Wan was even more respectful towards Han Ju. Several months later, the three of them arrived at a villa. The nearby mountains were steep, and no one could be seen within 1,000 miles. It was like a paradise. However, there was no one in this villa. Han Ju could see many ghosts hidden inside. The people of this villa had been slaughtered in the past, and the ghosts refused to reincarnate, so it became a ghost village. Tang Wan felt that this place was sinister, and did not dare to walk alone. She kept following Chu Xiaoqi, but he did not care. With his grandfather around, Chu Xiaoqi felt that he wouldn't be afraid, even if the sky collapsed. Han Ju felt that this place was not bad, and agreed to stay. It was a good opportunity to increase Chu Xiaoqi's cultivation. As night fell, Tang Wan did not dare to stay alone. She found Chu Xiaoqi, and the two of them stayed in the same room. Tang Wan was at the Foundation Establishment realm, after all, but she still felt uneasy entering this place. The two of them were not mortals, and did not need to sleep. They cultivated together. However, every night, they could hear the faint cries of women and children. This made Tang Wan even more nervous, and Chu Xiaoqi could not remain calm. He was a golden core realm cultivator. How strong were ghosts that even he could not see? He was indeed very strong. Han Ju predicted that even if a nascent soul realm cultivator came to this villa, they would also die. The person who slaughtered this villa was at the Tribulation Transcendence realm, and captured all the adult men here. The consequences of his spell were to make the evil ghosts stronger. The ghosts here absorbed the essence of the sun and moon every day, and became stronger all the time. The reason they didn't hurt them was naturally because of Han Ju. He planned to let Chu Xiaoqi deal with these ghosts as an exam after he became stronger. On this day, Han Ju was cultivating when a line of words appeared in front of him. "The formless transcendent deity sent you a dream. Do you accept?" With Han Ju's cultivation, the Tao creator shouldn't be able to visit him in his dreams, but he still lowered his status and gave the formless transcendent deity the right. The formless transcendent deity was now the overseer of the endless era, the most powerful existence on the surface. The dream was a blank domain. The formless transcendent deity bowed respectfully and asked, "Creation Lord, are there requirements towards future Tao creators?" Han Ju said, "There's no need to restrict them. If they can become a Tao creator on their own, let nature take its course." It was very difficult for a Tao creator to emerge. Even if no other Tao creator stopped him, it would take countless years for a new Tao creator to be born. For example, Han Huang, Han Ling, the primordial ancestor god, the ultimate god of punishment, and the other top great Tao supremes who had obtained a great creation in the great Tao immeasurable calamity, could not see any hope of becoming a Tao creator for the time being. I observed the future and discovered that a calamity for Tao creators might appear in the future. It might be related to the ultimate evil chaotic devil. The formless transcendent deity continued. After the ultimate evil chaotic devil was chased out of the chaos, he actually disappeared mysteriously. Hanju couldn't deduce it. He guessed that it was related to the ninth chaos, so he couldn't be bothered to use the system's derivation function. He would continue asking after the ninth chaos was completely enslaved. Let the Fusang divine tree supervise the future, Hanju replied, deciding the Fusang tree's status. The formless transcendent deity nodded, not daring to refute. He hesitated for a moment and then asked, "Recently, Han Yi has been destroying the great Tao worlds everywhere to increase his cultivation. Do I have to do anything about him?" Hanju said, "Aren't you unaffected by karma? Let nature take its course. Don't interfere with things below your level. The endless era is a brand new era. Even I don't know what kind of danger will appear in the future. Let all living beings be vigilant." Understood. After the dream ended, Hanju looked at Han Yi. This kid was indeed a little bloodthirsty. Furthermore, the direction he traveled would coincidentally bump into this world. According to his calculations, Han Yi would arrive in this world in at most 100 million years. His descendants couldn't be bullied, but he couldn't let him mess around. Hanju suddenly had an idea and smiled. In the blank domain, large worlds were dotted with pale white. Han Yi, who was surrounded by blood qi, meditated in the void. His entire body trembled very frequently, and his state was extremely wrong. At this moment, Han Yi was in a dream. In his dream, a blurry mysterious figure kept suppressing him, making him very angry. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1132 Calamity, Tao Mystic Realm. Chapter 1132 Calamity, Tao Mystic Realm. Han Yi woke up from his dream after fighting for a long time. This was not the first time he had such a dream. Every time he cultivated and entered a state, he would be tied down by such a nightmare. Most importantly, he could not deduce the karma of this dream. Could it be because I've killed too many people, causing negative karma and grudges? Han Yi frowned, but his innate great creation was the ultimate killing star. He had relied on killing to grow to this day. If he was asked to give up, it was equivalent to cutting off his right arm. The most terrifying thing was that once Han Yi stopped killing, as time passed, his cultivation level would slowly decrease. How could he accept that he had become weaker? I have to resolve this dream. Otherwise, I won't be able to cultivate in the future, and can only kill. Han Yi muttered to himself. He stood up and continued his plan. Since he couldn't find the problem, he would continue killing. One day, he would find the fellow in his dream, and kill him to eliminate future trouble. Somewhere in the blank domain, thousands of worlds surrounded a huge palace like stars. It was the Creation Emperor Court. After the great Tao immeasurable calamity ended, the status of the Creation Emperor Court soared. Now it was already one of the most famous holy lands in the Endless Era. The Emperor was even given the responsibility of controlling the order of the Endless Era. The current Creation Emperor Court had absorbed many mighty figures, including Tao's sovereign, Zhao Xianyuan, Jiang Yi, Lao Dan Li Daokong, and other ancient gods who had left behind legends in the great Tao immeasurable calamity. Box and Oval. C0M. From the perspective of a great Tao sage, 100 million years was not long, but to all living beings' existences below the sage realm, 100 million years was already the alternation of several eras. Inside the hall, Han Yao and Han Bahan faced Han Ling. They were alone. Han Ling wore an exquisite and holy robe with countless jades hanging on it. The jades reflected small worlds. The divine light on her head shone with a strong light, and covered most of her face. Only her mouth could be seen. Just her mouth was enough to make people appear. Han Yao said angrily, "Your Majesty, we have to control Han Yi. If this continues, our Creation Emperor Court's reputation will be sullied by him." "Yes, Just kill the enemies of the Creation Emperor Court. Our Creation Emperor Court can't be without enemies. But he slaughtered the innocent, causing many factions to become dissatisfied, Han Bahen added. He was also very dissatisfied with Han Yi. After the Great Tao immeasurable calamity ended, although Han Yi was still in the Creation Emperor Court, his relationship with the primordial chaos was clearly closer. It was mainly the primordial chaos with Han Huang. There were 3 primordial chaos in the Endless Era. They were each on their own side and were very far away. Their relationship was subtle. Han Huang was the most famous. In the Great Tao immeasurable calamity, his contributions were higher than the Emperor of the Creation Emperor Court. Han Ling said, "He has already fallen into his own calamity. Don't worry, just watch." Han Yao asked in surprise, "What calamity is it?" "Life and death calamity." Han Yao frowned. Han Bahen was the same. Although they were unhappy with Han Yi, they still had a close relationship. They were also members of the clan. How could they see Han Yi die? "You don't have to care about this. I have something to tell you," Han Ling continued, ignoring their turbulent emotions. "Formless world has opened the Tao mystic realm. I hope that the various factions can enter a mortal world. Every faction can only enter one mortal world. The cultivation level of the mortal world cannot surpass the deity realm. Its goal is to unite the Endless Era, and for the various factions to establish a certain connection. The choice of this world is chosen by Han Yao. Han Bahen, go to the Tao mystic realm, and gather information in advance. Contact Han Yao at any time," she instructed. Han Yi and Han Bahen accepted the order and left. As the sun shone brightly, the huge villa was filled with boundless mist. In a courtyard, Chu Xiaoqi was cultivating a spell. He was cultivating the transformation technique. Tang Wan was feeding a huge golden eagle. It was Chu Xiaoniao. Chu Xiaoniao had always been in a free-range state, and had only found them recently. This made Chu Xiaoqi very happy. He had even forgotten about this fellow. He didn't expect it to find him. Little did he know that Chu Xiaoniao was not looking for him. But Han Ju. Chu Xiaoniao already had intelligence. Han Ju had once taught it, and it had benefited greatly. All these years, it had wandered around and discovered that it was too weak to be a demon king. So it followed Chu Xiaoqi's aura to cultivate. Of course, Chu Xiaoniao didn't show this. At this moment, a figure flew out from the clouds. This person had disheveled hair, and looked to be in his 50s or 60s. He wore a gorgeous black robe, and had a powerful aura. His gaze landed on Chu Xiaoqi. "Kid, I've finally found you. So you're hiding in this ferocious land. You're courting death." Chu Xiaoqi and Tang Wan looked up, and their expressions changed drastically. "Sect Master." Tang Wan's expression turned defeated. Chu Xiaoqi was on high alert as he shouted, "Old man Chen Su, don't be arrogant. My grandfather is here. You're courting death if you dare to attack me." Taoist Chen Su didn't capture Han Ju's aura, and guessed that Chu Xiaoqi was bluffing. He smiled disdainfully and said, "Could it be that your grandfather is a wandering ghost here?" Chu Xiaoqi snorted. "My grandfather is an immortal. Your illegitimate son has done all sorts of evil, and harmed so many fellow disciples. As the sect master, you didn't stop him. You deserve to die. Today, I'll let the immortal uphold justice." Ridiculous. Taoist Chen Su's anger was instantly ignited. He had many illegitimate children, but the son Chu Xiaoqi killed was the most talented. He still wanted to send that illegitimate child to a larger sect to exchange for pills that could break through a higher realm. Unfortunately, all of this was ruined by this brat. Taoist Chen Su waved his right hand, and a figure landed in front of Chu Xiaoqi. It was the corpse of a handsome man. Chu Xiaoqi's eyelids twitched. He suddenly realized that something was wrong. The other party was not only here to kill him. "Today you have to die for my son. My son will revive with your death." Taoist Chen Su said coldly. He took out a white ruler and pressed it down. In an instant, a terrifying pressure descended, causing Chu Xiaoqi and Tang Wan to vomit blood and kneel on the ground. The courtyard collapsed and the fog in all directions dispersed. Taoist Chen Su was about to cast a spell, when he suddenly saw a figure that made his pupils constrict. After the clouds dispersed, He saw a figure sitting on the roof of the Taoist temple next door. He actually did not sense it. Now, even when he saw the other party, his divine sense did not capture his aura. It was as if this person did not exist, and he was only hallucinating. There's really an immortal? Taoist Chen Su had such a ridiculous thought. He was about to speak when Han Ju opened his eyes and glanced over with a cold gaze. Before Taoist Chen Su could see his eyes clearly, his body was instantly petrified. He fell and smashed into the courtyard that had turned into ruins. He shattered, causing rubble to scatter all over the ground. Chu Xiaoqi was dumbfounded. Tang Wan was also in disbelief. What happened? Chu Xiaoniao shivered in fear. Han Ju's voice floated over. I wonder when you can rely on yourself to resolve all the trouble. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1133 Uncle. Chapter 1133 Uncle. Oh my god. Grandpa. You're fucking strong. Chu Xiaoqi came back to his senses and exclaimed. He immediately jumped to Han Ju's side and started to flatter him. Tang Wan looked at the rubble ahead and swallowed. A soul formation realm cultivator died just like that? How was that possible? Even the legendary Mahayana cultivator couldn't kill a soul formation realm cultivator without attacking, right? This method was beyond Tang Wan's imagination. Grandpa, what mystical power was that just now? Teach me. 11 Grandpa, you're definitely at the Mahayana realm, right? Box novel. C0M, have you surpassed the Mahayana realm? Can immortals descend into the mortal world? Chu Xiaoqi shook Han Ju's arm and kept asking questions. Han Ju was helpless. Only this kid dared to be so rude. If it was Han Huang, Han Tuo, and Han Yunjin, he would directly slap them. I can't tell you my cultivation level for now. You're not qualified to know. Cultivate well. Han Ju interrupted Chu Xiaoqi and chased him out. Chu Xiaoqi and Tang Wan began to clean up the courtyard. As the two of them cleaned up, they excitedly discussed what they had just seen. They were now extremely certain that Han Ju was an immortal, a true immortal. They were filled with anticipation for the future. If they cultivated under him, could they also become immortals in the future? Tang Wan sighed. Are you really his grandson? How can an immortal love mortals so much? Chu Xiaoqi scratched his head. I saw it with my own eyes when my grandfather was buried. It can't be fake. Could it be an ancestor? It's really possible. After all, we're both handsome and of the same lineage. How shameless are you? Tang Wan rolled her eyes. She felt that Han Ju was the most handsome man she had ever seen, and Chu Xiaoqi was the most shameless man she had ever seen. It was all reflected on her face. Chu Xiaoqi chuckled. In any case, he's my biological grandfather. I'm certain of this. Who could threaten him in the future with such powerful backing? Chu Xiaoqi was overjoyed. He had already imagined a beautiful future. After Taoist Chen Su died, no one from the sect came to hunt him down. The cultivation days in the villa became more leisurely. Han Ju would occasionally guide Chu Xiaoqi and Tang Wan. Although it was little, it could greatly increase their comprehension every time. The two of them didn't know what fortuitous encounter they had encountered, but they clearly felt their improvement. Although that was the case, it was still within their acceptable range. After all, this was an immortal. 20 years passed quickly. Chu Xiaoqi had reached the nascent soul realm, and Tang Wan had reached the golden core realm. She was not far from the nascent soul realm. Such cultivation speed was definitely top-notch in the mortal world. It was even faster than the top prodigies in this mortal world. The two of them did not realize this. On this day, Tang Wan found Han Ju. He already treated her as his granddaughter-in-law and would occasionally chat with her, so the two of them were not distant. Tang Wan sat beside him and said in distress, Brother Xiaoqi looks different. Or rather, he has no feelings for me at all. Han Ju smiled. You two are fated. The reason he didn't tell you his feelings is that he's still waiting. Waiting for what? Waiting for more women. It's indeed like his style. Previously, he always peeped at the other female disciples in the sect. Then you have to capture him well. I can't force the two of you to be together. Although there's marriage, it's difficult to decide, because the time when the marriage comes is unpredictable. Even you can't predict it? I can, but I can't reveal the heavenly secrets. Fine. Tang Wan sighed. The two of them were like grandfather and granddaughter as they chatted. After being enlightened by Han Ju, Tang Wan's bad mood was swept away, and she happily went back to cultivate. Han Ju looked at her back and sighed. To be able to be distracted by love, this was human nature. How interesting. He had already lost this ability, so he missed it. The villa was pleasant, and had beautiful mountains and rivers. It was like a paradise in the mortal world. Han Ju felt that staying in such an environment was more comfortable than staying in the Dao field. Perhaps this was peace, but in the Dao field, he was just sitting there. From time to time, new phenomena and new living beings would appear in this forest. There were always changes throughout the year. Han Ju suddenly felt the world moving. At this moment, a figure appeared in the universe outside. He raised this mortal world with one hand and walked out of the universe. The current endless era was divided into the Great Dao World, the Great World, and the Little World. The Great Dao World contained countless worlds, and every world was like a universe, containing myriad worlds. Han Ju noticed that this figure was a Great Dao Sage. A Great Dao Sage had personally come. It seemed that it was not a small matter. He began to deduce. So it was done by Formless World. He wanted to contact all the Great Dao Worlds and establish a neutral land. Other than giving the juniors a chance to join powerful factions, it was also to strengthen himself. In the eyes of the various factions, it was not a loss to only produce one mortal world. They could even form a formless world. Formless World was not taking advantage of him for nothing. He had to use all his resources to develop the Dao mystic realm and control the mortal worlds to affect the various Great Dao Worlds. It required a long time and endless resources to nurture so many mortal worlds. Coincidentally, this world was chosen. It was just nice to be a stage for Chu Xiaoqi. He calculated that it would take 5,000 years for this mortal world to fuse with the Dao mystic realm. When he reached the Dao mystic realm, he still had to wait for a period of time. 5,000 years was enough for Chu Xiaoqi to accumulate considerable strength. Han Ju felt that Chu Xiaoqi still lacked the personality of an expert. He thought for a moment and sent a dream to someone. Several days later, a man passed through the clouds and arrived at the villa. Chu Xiaoqi and Tang Wan felt the terrifying aura and walked out of the house, looking up. A handsome man in purple divine armor stood in the void. He looked around and suddenly saw Han Ju. He immediately knelt down and bowed. Chu Xiaoqi and Tang Wan were stunned. The armored man seemed to sense them. Then he landed in front of Chu Xiaoqi and said, "From today onwards, I'll teach you cultivation." This person was Han Tuo. Han Tuo sized up Chu Xiaoqi expressionlessly. He was a little glad. He did not expect his second brother to have a son. Chu Xiaoqi asked nervously, "Who are you?" Tang Wan said in a low voice, "Don't you think he looks very similar to Grandpa?" Han Tuo said, "That's right. The grandfather you're talking about is my father, my biological father." Chu Xiaoqi's eyes lit up. He immediately went forward and rubbed his hands to please him. "Then you're my uncle." He had tried to pull strings, but he did not expect it to work so well. Han Tuo said, "I will teach you for 100 years. Not only cultivation but also fighting." All right. It'll be tough. I'm not afraid of suffering." Han Tuo nodded in satisfaction. Chu Xiaoqi added, "Count her in." He pointed at Tang Wan. Han Tuo shook his head. "My cultivation technique is not suitable for women. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Calm. Chapter 1134 Determination to Become Immortal. Creator Lord's Favoritism. Chapter 1134 Determination to Become Immortal. Creator Lord's Favoritism. Chu Xiaoqi was convinced by Han Tuo's appearance. Such a figure was definitely a very powerful cultivator. He looked forward to his teaching, but in less than a day he regretted it. How was this cultivation? He was completely beaten up. At the back of the villa, Han Tuo established a barrier independently. The internal space was larger than the entire mortal world. Although Chu Xiaoqi was surprised, he did not realize how big the space inside this barrier was. Chu Xiaoqi lay in the ruins, panting heavily. His clothes were ragged, and he was covered in blood. He was in an extremely miserable state. He looked at the high and mighty Han Tuo, his eyes filled with despair. "Uncle, can you stop? I'm not your uncle. We're enemies now. The enemy won't let you rest in a battle of life and death. But I've used up all my spirit energy. What I am teaching is to fight to the death even if your spirit energy is exhausted." Han Tuo attacked Chu Xiaoqi again. The power was extremely terrifying. Chu Xiaoqi felt that if he did not dodge, he might really die. He had no choice but to grit his teeth and dodge. Box and oval. C0M. After 7 days, Chu Xiaoqi finally came out of the barrier. He dragged his injured body as he went to find Han Ju. Tang Wan covered her mouth when she saw him, but she didn't say anything. After all, the one who taught Chu Xiaoqi was Han Ju's biological son. He was trustworthy. Chu Xiaoqi came in front of Han Ju and cried. This time, Han Ju's heart didn't soften. He didn't let him off no matter how much he pleaded. Chu Xiaoqi left helplessly. Then, Han Tuo came to visit him respectfully. He didn't dare to be as unreasonable as Chu Xiaoqi. Facing Han Ju, he still felt distant, because he was experienced and knew how strong his father was. Han Ju began to preach the Tao. The father and son didn't need to exchange pleasantries. It was more realistic to directly preach the Tao. He used the power of time, making this lecture independent of time. Only a few days had passed when Han Tuo finished listening to the Tao. Han Tuo found Chu Xiaoqi again, and ignored his resistance. He carried the kid into the barrier. Tang Wan was a little worried about Chu Xiaoqi, so she found Han Ju. Seeing that she couldn't change this matter, she could only give up. This time, Chu Xiaoqi stayed in the barrier for a long time. Of course, he was forced to do it. One day, Xing Hongxian returned. She entered Han Ju's residence and pounced into his arms. She acted coquettishly like Chu Xiaoqi, and talked about what she had seen and heard during this period of time. Han Ju listened patiently. In the end, Xing Hongxian asked him about his plan for Chu Xiaoqi. Calling Han Tuo over was enough to show how much he valued this kid. Chu Xiaoqi was her only grandson, so she naturally had to care. Han Ju smiled. He has the potential to become a primordial fiend celestial. Xing Hongxian frowned in joy. Aren't you going to tell Huanger about this? No need. That kid is busy building his primordial chaos. Besides, he might not have this son in his heart at all. But if that's the case, this father and son will. Huanger also needs to be corrected, Han Ju said meaningfully. If he nurtured other descendants to surpass Han Huang, this fellow would only be angry. However, if it was a son who he was guilty towards, that would be a different story. Xing Hongxian smiled. I think you just dote on Xiaoqi. How can you be so unreasonable? That's right, I dote on him. As the master of the endless era, do I need to worry about anything when I dote on someone? Yes. You're the best. I'm going to bring Tang Wan away. Her potential is too poor. She won't be able to keep up with Xiaoqi sooner or later. Yes. I'll tell Wanner to say goodbye to him after Xiaoqi comes out. I'll also stimulate this kid to work hard. You're really something. Xing Hongxian also found it interesting, and even began to look forward to Chu Xiaoqi's reaction. That day she found Tang Wan and showed her ability. Tang Wan was pleasantly surprised, and immediately acknowledged her as her master. When Xing Hongxian suggested bringing her away, and not seeing Chu Xiaoqi for a long time, she immediately panicked and hesitated. Ever since her brother died, Chu Xiaoqi had been her only family. Furthermore, she had always loved him as he always protected her. How could she abandon him for opportunities? Forget it. I can't leave him. Tang Wan sighed and her eyes became firm. For the sake of love, giving up longevity was undoubtedly a huge determination. She could also tell that Han Ju only cared about Chu Xiaoqi. She was only a side character. Xing Hongxian smiled. Cultivators can live for more than 1,000 years or 10,000 years. As the difference in your cultivation levels increases, you won't be able to keep up with him sooner or later. She waved her right hand, and a memory surged into Tang Wan's mind. It was a Taoist temple. The old her lay on the bed, preparing to welcome her end. Beside her stood Chu Xiaoqi, still young and even more handsome. The difference between life and death. This memory was very short. There were no words, but silence was better than words. When Tangwan woke up, she was deeply stimulated, and sweat broke out on her forehead. After struggling for a long time, she finally agreed and followed Xing Hongxian to cultivate. Half a year later, Chu Xiaoqi finally came out of the barrier. This time he seemed to have been reborn. He was like an unsheathed sword, revealing its sharpness. This time, he didn't look for Hanju but Tangwan. However, he only found a jade slip in her house. He injected spirit energy, and a shadow appeared. It was Tangwan. Brother Xiaoqi, I'll have already left when you see this letter. I've obtained the favor of an immortal. She wants to bring me to the immortal world to cultivate. Actually, I've always liked you, but you don't seem to like me enough. I didn't want to leave you at first, but then I saw the future. Without opportunities, I can't keep up with you. You'll still be young when I die. I don't want this. I want to walk side by side with you. Tang Wan's eyes turned red as she continued. I have to cultivate and catch up to you. However, my only regret is that I don't know if you like me. Grandpa said that we are fated. But are we really? Brother Xiaoqi, see you in the future. We will definitely meet, as long as you don't forget me. Tang Wan's shadow dissipated. Chu Xiaoqi stood in front of the table and remained silent. Several days passed, but Chu Xiaoqi did not leave Tang Wan's room. Han Tua sat at the edge of the cliff as his thoughts drifted. He also thought of the most important woman in his life. His old friend was already dead, and had already become a memory. He could revive that person, but he felt that it would only be a shell, not the true person. Some people, and some things could be placed in his memories. Half a month later, Chu Xiaoqi finally came out. He still didn't look for Han Ju, or ask if the immortal who took Tang Wan away was related to his grandfather. He directly found Han Tua and continued cultivating. They entered the barrier again. Han Ju walked out of the house and stood in the courtyard, enjoying the sunlight. He smiled. Since he had nothing to do, he stretched and checked his emails. Soon he saw a noteworthy email. Your disciple Ji Xianxian has crossed the origin space-time. His karma has been severed. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1135 Origin Spacetime. Chapter 1135 Origin Spacetime. Han Ju opened his friends list. Ji Xianxian's portrait was still there. He was not dead. However, he observed the endless era, and couldn't find Ji Xianxian at all. He couldn't even find the past or the future, including his own past. Han Ju's cultivation was outstanding, so he could still remember Ji Xianxian. However, other than him, everyone had forgotten about him, including the hidden sect disciples. It was as if Ji Xianxian had never existed in the world. Interesting. Origin Spacetime. Han Ju wanted to visit him in his dreams, but he couldn't. He couldn't find Ji Xianxian at all. He had no choice but to use the system's derivation function. I want to know Ji Xianxian's location. Unable to derive its karma. Can't be found in the blank domain. Interesting. Does Ji Xianxian have a chance to surpass me? Although he was a disciple, people would change. He still had to be wary. Box and Oval. C0M if he couldn't save him. He had to be careful if the other party would benefit from a disaster and surpass him. If there was hope, Han Ju would not curse Ji Xianxian. He would only cultivate harder. If he encountered Ji Xianxian in the future, he would face him with extreme caution. 600 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Forever impossible. To reach the Creator Lord realm, one has to surpass the primordial Fian Celestial's potential. The origin space-time doesn't have such an opportunity or possibility. Han Ju was relieved. His system was formed by the blank domain consciousness. It was equivalent to the greatest opportunity of the blank domain. It was nurtured by countless predecessors, and it was very difficult for anyone to catch up to him. However, Han Ju still didn't let down his guard. Just because Ji Xianxian couldn't, it didn't mean that others couldn't. He did not ask the system if there was a possibility of him being surpassed. He was afraid that the answer would be impossible to surpass. Han Ju didn't want to relax. Origin spacetime. Han Ju had an idea. He immediately created a clone and entered spacetime to search for the so-called origin spacetime. Then he continued reading the emails. The endless era had already entered peace, after 100 million years. Although there were occasional conflicts in his circle of friends, compared to the Great Tao immeasurable calamity, it was simply too friendly. After the Great Tao immeasurable calamity ended, the endless era welcomed an explosive period. New worlds appeared every day, but there were also hidden dangers in the hidden sect. Some disciples began to have conflicts. This was like fighting for a country. When fighting, everyone was united. Once they unified the world, they began to fight for power. Hanju couldn't forcefully stop this situation. Even if he was enslaved by the ultimate origin heavenly prison, he was loyal to Hanju and not absolutely kind to others. Hanju let it pass. Every family had their own difficulties. He would let them fight among themselves. For the next period of time, Chu Xiaoqi immersed himself in the barrier as if he had gone mad. He stayed inside for 80 years. 80 years later, Chu Xiaoqi walked out of the barrier and came to visit him. His appearance did not change, but his body was clearly much stronger. There was a murderous aura between his brows. All these years, his cultivation level had almost not increased, but his strength had changed drastically. The first thing Chu Xiaoqi said when he saw him was, "Grandpa, when can I see Wanner?" This kid was not stupid and guessed who the mastermind was. But he didn't beg Hanju to let them meet, because he knew that this was the best path for them. Hanju said, "You will naturally see her when the time is right. Marriage requires your own efforts, not waiting." Chu Xiaoqi was deep in thought. He suddenly grinned and said, "I'll cultivate for 1,000 years first. During this period of time, find a few hundred concubines to play with. This girl is easily jealous, so I can't let her discover it." He regained his composure. But Hanju knew that he was changing the topic. Chu Xiaoqi didn't have a chance to find any mistresses now. "Grandpa, what's your son's name?" All these years, when I asked him, he didn't answer. "He's really strong. Is he a Mahayana cultivator?" Chu Xiaoqi asked expectantly. Now, he admired Han Tua the most. All these years of cultivation made him unable to imagine what Han Tua had experienced. Hanju smiled. He will say it when he needs to. But he's leaving. Then work hard and strive to come into contact with his world one day. Fine. Chu Xiaoqi sighed. He was indeed too weak. Otherwise, his brother wouldn't have died, and he and Tang Wan wouldn't have been hunted down. Outside the door, Han Tua bowed to Hanju, and directly jumped out of this great Tao world. At this moment, with Chu Xiaoqi's speed, it would take countless billions of years to arrive. Hanju asked, "What do you plan to do next? Continue cultivating or go out and adventure?" Chu Xiaoqi thought for a moment and then said, "Cultivate. Although I'm already very strong, I'm not invincible in the world. Being by your side is the greatest opportunity in the world. Why run around?" Chu Xiaoqi smiled proudly and started to massage Hanju's back and shoulders. No matter how old he was, he would always be that youth in front of him. The grandfather and grandson chatted for a while before Chu Xiaoqi went to cultivate. Hanju also continued cultivating. To the current him, cultivating was the same no matter the place. After reaching the Creator Lord realm, he no longer needed to cultivate his dermic powers. His cultivation was more about comprehending new and non-existent things. The cultivation technique Hanju taught Chu Xiaoqi was enough for him to cultivate to the Mahayana realm. So he didn't disturb Hanju in the following days. Years passed. Spring and autumn alternated. Things changed in the world. The villa stood in seclusion. 500 years passed quickly. Chu Xiaoqi was transcending the Mahayana through realm tribulation and was preparing to break to the loose immortal realm. He was extremely nervous as he faced this tribulation. As long as he succeeded, he could ascend to the immortal world and find Tang Wan. He was also a little nervous. Would she still like him after getting used to the situation in the immortal world? These hundreds of years were very short for Hanju, but they were torturous to Chu Xiaoqi. How many days and nights had he missed her? In the past, when Tang Wan was by his side, he did not like her. But he missed her now that she was gone. Hanju walked out to the courtyard and looked at Chu Xiaoqi transcending the tribulation. Although Chu Xiaoqi was nervous, Hanju already guessed that he could successfully transcend it. Indeed, 49 days later, Chu Xiaoqi became a loose immortal. A pillar of light descended from the sky and covered him. It broke through the sky and pulled him up. Chu Xiaoqi turned to look at the villa. After reaching the Mahayana realm, he could see countless ghosts hidden in the villa. They were all suppressed under the villa by the mysterious dermic powers. No wonder he felt that it was sinister back then. There were really ghosts here. So it was Grandpa who was protecting them. Chu Xiaoqi shouted, "Grandpa, I'm about to ascend. See you in the immortal world in the future." The power of ascension was too strong. He could not stop at all, and was forcefully ascended. "Grandpa, I'll always remember you. I'll definitely be filial to you if I have the chance in the future." Chu Xiaoqi continued to shout, his voice resounding through the sky. "Waner, I'm coming." At this moment, Han Ju's voice floated up. "In that case, don't ascend. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1136 Creating Obsessiona. Chapter 1136 Creating Obsessiona. Chu Xiaoqi sat on the cliff with his eyes wide open, unable to come back to his senses. His ascension had actually stopped. He had already fantasized about meeting Tang Wan, but he did not expect his grandfather to forcefully pull him back. He felt that it was ridiculous. After all, his grandfather was also an immortal, and could definitely go to the immortal world. Why did he pull him back? This was the first time Chu Xiaoqi was dissatisfied with Han Ju. He didn't understand what his grandfather wanted, so he was angry and didn't look for him. Han Ju naturally saw through his thoughts and didn't explain. He waited for Chu Xiaoqi to come to him. Chu Xiaoqi finally came to him several days later. He sat in front of Han Ju and snorted. He crossed his arms and looked unhappy. Han Ju ignored him. He couldn't help but say, "Grandpa." Seeing that Han Ju still didn't open his eyes, Chu Xiaoqi almost died of anger. Extremely angry, Chu Xiaoqi suddenly lay on the ground and wailed, "Box and oval." C0M Han Tua would definitely die of anger if he saw this. Han Ju asked, "Do you really want to see her?" Chu Xiaoqi looked up. "If I don't go, she might be taken by other men. Even if I'm confident in saving her, I can't let myself be cuckolded." Han Ju couldn't help but laugh. "Don't worry, she won't find anyone else." "Why? Aren't you confident? Why can't you trust her?" "But, Xiaoqi, there's no medicine for regret in this world. As long as you lose it, you have to be prepared to bear the consequences. Cultivate well. You'll be at the bottom if you go to the immortal world now. How can you attract her, who has already changed her mind?" Since you can't attract her, why not trust her? I believe that she hasn't changed her mind. What you have to do is make yourself stronger, so strong that you can change everything. Chu Xiaoqi fell into deep thought. Han Ju smiled. "I've never taken risks for women in my life. The path of cultivation should focus on oneself. Only if you're strong enough can you have the right to protect everything." Chu Xiaoqi took a deep breath. "I understand. Grandpa, I'm sorry. I was short-sighted. Then when do you think I can ascend?" "Let's wait a little longer. Perhaps soon or a long time." Han Ju closed his eyes. Chu Xiaoqi thought for a while before standing up and leaving, preparing to cultivate. Chu Xiaoqi became even more diligent. He meditated and cultivated every day to increase his cultivation. Chu Xiaoqi's life seemed long, but in the endless era, time still passed very slowly. In the blank domain, the heavenly court stood above dozens of worlds. It emitted endless divine light that illuminated all worlds. Heavenly Court, Imperial Garden. The evil heavenly emperor and Han Tua were drinking and chatting. His majesty is becoming freer and freer. Han Tua smiled. The evil heavenly emperor smiled. "Yes, you too. In the past, you rarely visited me." Han Tua shook his head. "At that time, my obsession was too deep, and I indeed neglected too much. Now that I've removed my burden, I suddenly feel that being the strongest is not that important." The evil heavenly emperor smiled teasingly. "That's true. After all, you can't catch up to your father." Han Tua rolled his eyes. "Who chatted like this?" The evil heavenly emperor said. "By the way, you came at the right time. Do you know Chenju?" "Yes, he's a descendant of the Han family. He's the most talented recently. I want to recruit him. Are you going to speak up for me? This child didn't seek refuge with a major faction. He only has Linger secretly protecting him. Why didn't you directly invite him? I've invited him. This kid disdains immortals. Speaking of this, the evil heavenly emperor was very helpless. That Chenju really looked like that existence. Of course, it was only his appearance and personality. Han Tuo shrugged. Then forget it. As an ancestor, I can't force the fate of my descendants. The evil heavenly emperor sighed, and immediately felt desolate. Han Tuo ignored his performance. The two of them changed the topic, and continued chatting. Why have you descended into the mortal world before? The evil heavenly emperor suddenly asked. The evil heavenly emperor was also a great Tao Supreme. He couldn't sense Hanju's existence, but he could capture Han Tuo's movements. However, he couldn't deduce what he had done. This kid wouldn't descend into the mortal world for no reason. Han Tuo smiled and said, You can't ask about this. It's a very important matter. Your Majesty, this endless era looks peaceful, but there are actually undercurrents. The heavenly court is a neutral force. Don't accidentally take the wrong side. The heavenly court's foundation was still a little weak. In Han Tuo's opinion, it could not withstand the test. Of course, Han Tuo was only scaring the evil heavenly emperor. Hanju's nurturing of Chu Xiaoqi was clearly different. Han Tuo didn't want to disturb them because of him. Han Tuo couldn't see through his father, but he felt that there was a deeper meaning in nurturing Chu Xiaoqi. The evil heavenly emperor was deep in thought. Several hours later, Han Tuo left. The evil heavenly emperor's smile vanished. He looked at the mortal world Han Tuo had gone to. Tao Mystic Realm. The evil heavenly emperor's expression was solemn. He swirled his wine cup with his right hand, thinking about something. Times had changed, and so had people. The terror of the Tao creator was reflected in the great Tao immeasurable calamity, making them existences who had survived the calamity yearn to become Tao creators. Only by becoming a Tao creator could one become undying and eternal. Only then could reality and illusion be defined. He, the evil heavenly emperor, also wanted to become a Tao creator. The heavenly court alone could not do it. Time passed quickly. 1,000 years had passed in the mortal world. The dynasties had changed, but the cultivators in the mountains did not know the changes outside. Chu Xiaoqi was one of them. After 1,000 years of cultivation, his cultivation level had already reached the Grand Unity Heaven Immortal Realm. This speed was very slow in Hanju's eyes, but it was considered fast to a normal immortal world. On this day, Hanju summoned him. A more stable Chu Xiaoqi sat in front of Hanju openly. He didn't play the same tricks as before. What is it, Grandpa? Chu Xiaoqi smiled. Looking at his mature and handsome face, Hanju felt a sense of achievement. After all, he had raised this kid personally. Hanju smiled and said, You can ascend now. Chu Xiaoqi's eyes widened, and his breathing quickened. He asked, Are you coming with me? No, go ahead. You should walk your own path from now on. Hanju shook his head gently. Chu Xiaoqi became silent. Chu Xiaoqi suddenly said, I'm not leaving. I'll stay by your side. Why? Don't you miss your Wana? Everyone has their own life. If she still cares about me, she will find me sooner or later. I don't owe her anything, but I owe you everything, Chu Xiaoqi said seriously. He looked at Hanju with gratitude. He knew very well that if not for this grandfather, he would have died under the cliff. He would not have met Tang Wan later, and embarked on the path of cultivation. After interacting with him for so many years, he had never been filial to Hanju. Chu Xiaoqi thought of how Hanju would stay in this valley alone, and enjoy the loneliness of time, if he ascended to find that illusory so-called love. He felt very uncomfortable. From the time they met until now, everything in the past appeared in front of him. From the beginning to the end, the person him was his grandfather, who accompanied. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1137 Feng Liang's Choice. Chapter 1137 Feng Liang's Choice. Hanju was satisfied when he saw Chu Xiaoqi's expression. He had not nurtured him in vain. What a good grandson. He smiled and said, Go. I really want you to go this time. What you said just now. Everyone has their own life. You have yours too. I'm only a passerby in your life. Chu Xiaoqi was silent, his heart filled with reluctance. Hanju reached out and touched his head. Xiaoqi, the path of cultivation is extremely long. One day, 1,000 years will only be a day for you. At that time, when you look back, your mental state will be completely different. Chu Xiaoqi couldn't help but ask, is this your current state of mind? That's right. How old are you? Grandpa, are you a very powerful immortal in the immortal world? I don't belong to the immortal world. Actually, I'm not an immortal. As for how old I am, I'm actually not that old. Hanju smiled gently. These words made Chu Xiaoqi think that he was a land deity traveling the mortal world. The grandfather and grandson chatted for a long time. Finally, under Hanju's wave of the hand, Chu Xiaoqi was expelled by the rules of the mortal world and began to ascend. He, who was constantly rising into the sky, looked down and did not see his grandfather. He did not come out to send him off. Box and oval. C0M. For some reason, Chu Xiaoqi suddenly felt sorrow and confusion. His family had long turned to dust. Now that he had bid farewell to his grandfather, he was really wandering the world alone. What should he do in the future? Where should he go? He suddenly thought of Han Tua, that firm and domineering figure. Perhaps that was his goal, the man he wanted to become. Chu Xiaoqi no longer acted like a child. He looked up at the sky with anticipation. Immortal world, I want to see how exciting you are. After he ascended, Hanju also quietly left the villa. The villa returned to its ghostly appearance. After more than 1,000 years of accumulation, the ghost aura of the villa was even stronger. It was definitely a dangerous place to the mortal world. Hanju returned to the third Dao field. Many disciples were still cultivating near the Taoist temple group. Now that the three Dao fields were connected, the disciples who could come to a radius of billions of kilometers of the Dao temple were all people with high status in the hidden sect. Hanju quietly returned to his Taoist temple. Shani had never returned since he went out. It seemed that he had been holding it in the past. These disciples were like his children. They rarely returned after going out. Hanju sat for a while before calling Feng Liang in. Feng Liang had been waiting for him outside for hundreds of years. Feng Liang entered the temple and bowed. After sitting down, he said, Grandmaster, I feel that time and space might have changed. Hanju asked, why? I often study space-time and know its changes. Recently, I've clearly felt that I've forgotten something. There are also fluctuations in the space-time rules. Someone must have tampered with space-time. I'm worried that it will affect us, Feng Liang said worriedly. But his words made Hanju think highly of him. Thinking about it carefully, Feng Liang had traveled through space and time earlier than Ji Xianxin. However, the fact that Feng Liang could sense the origin space-time proved that his talent was very impressive. Even a great Dao Supreme couldn't sense the origin space-time. Only a Dao creator could do it. Speaking of which, Feng Liang and Ji Xianxin were once the best brothers. Later, because of the battle of the heavenly Dao's immeasurable calamity, the two of them became strangers for hundreds of millions of years. He did not expect that after Ji Xianxin disappeared, the only person who cared about him was this brother who had turned against him. Hanju said, that's right. This is indeed the case. A disciple touched the origin space-time and was devoured by karma. Everyone forgot about him. Feng Liang frowned. Hanju didn't disturb his thoughts. After a long time, Feng Liang asked, is that person important to me? Is this question meaningful? I'm uneasy. If he's important to me, I'll definitely save him. By severing karma like this, he should have no choice. Ancestor, please guide me. Hanju looked at him meaningfully and said, we can only investigate if we go to the origin space-time. But I don't know how to save him. You were once the best brothers, but later you broke up. You didn't get back together until he disappeared. He told the truth. Feng Liang would decide on his own. Feng Liang frowned even more. The Taoist temple fell silent. Hanju's gaze passed through the Dao field and landed on the blank domain. After the chaos shattered, the worlds of the chaos had already dispersed. It could even be said that most of the worlds of the endless era had evolved from the chaotic world. Hanju discovered that his children were estranged. They hadn't interacted for a long time. Speaking of which, the most filial was the youngest son. He did not think highly of Han Yunjin. Han Yunjin's potential was the worst, but he would return every once in a while to visit his elders. It was the same for his brothers and sisters. However, other than Han Ling, Han Tua, Han Huang, and Han Qing'er did not care much about him. The current Han Yunjin was still struggling at the Great Tao Sage realm. He had only reached it with the support of the hidden sect. With his potential, he might never have the chance to become a Great Tao Supreme. Han Ju suddenly wondered if he should show him some concern. Fong Liang looked up and said, "I choose to save him. Grandmaster, please guide me where the origin spacetime is." "Right now. I'm already prepared." Han Ju waved his hand and pointed, sending Fong Liang into the origin spacetime. It didn't matter if Fong Liang could succeed. That was his choice. The origin spacetime erased all karma. The soul fragment that Ji Xianxian had left with Han Ju had already disappeared, which meant that Fong Liang could die. Han Ju was already indifferent to life and death. He couldn't protect all the disciples forever. He was already invincible. If he was biased like this, the hidden sect would dominate the endless era. He would suffer a backlash sooner or later. Any unification would end eventually. Han Ju had already jumped out of the hidden sect, and wouldn't be especially biased. The essence of the current hidden sect had already been disbanded, but with its soul around, all the personal disciples had their own forces. They would fight sooner or later. Han Ju stood up and disappeared from the Taoist temple. Heavenly Tao. Ever since the endless era began, the heavenly Tao had completely soared. Without the suppression of the great Tao divine spirit, the heavenly Tao could develop without restraint. Now, it was still dominated by heavenly venerate Xiandu, but its control was still in Han Ju's hands. Many of the upper echelons of the heavenly Tao were his slaves. Han Yunjin had also been promoted to one of the most powerful heavenly Tao sages. At this moment, he was playing with a mirror in his Taoist temple. Many images flashed in the mirror and reflected in his eyes. Han Ju quietly appeared behind him. The situation of various descendants of the Han family appeared in the mirror. It turned out that Han Yunjin's favorite thing was to screen the bloodlines passed down in the Han family and choose those with outstanding potential to nurture. Previously, Chen Ju, who had obtained the creation heavens chosen, had received his secret help, so he disdained the immortals. Han Yunjin nodded from time to time and smiled in satisfaction. Han Ju sighed in his heart. This kid really didn't have the bearing of an expert at all. However, this was also good. His children all wanted to be the strongest. Wouldn't they have to treat Han Ju as their enemy in the future? Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1138 Tao Attainment Through the Family. Chapter 1138 Tao Attainment Through the Family. This kid is not bad. The Han family actually has such a vile descendant. You're courting death. Sigh, how pitiful. You've been alone all your life. Fortunately, I saw it and came to save you. This child is not bad either. He knows how to endure. Han Yunjin muttered to himself. It was quite funny in Han Ju's eyes. After a long while, Han Yunjin was still immersed. Seeing that he probably wouldn't end his spying for a long time, Han Ju coughed lightly. Han Yunjin was frightened. He turned around and saw that it was his father. Stunned, he immediately knelt down to kowtow. Greetings, father. Han Yunjin was extremely nervous and regretful. Did his father see his ugly state just now? His father rarely came to see him. He didn't expect to see him spying on his descendants. Box and oval. C0M Han Yunjin was extremely embarrassed and wished he could find a hole to hide in. Han Ju didn't tease him. After all, the father and son weren't as close as he was to Chu Xiaoqi. He began to ask about what he was doing recently. Han Yunjin became more and more excited. Was his father visiting him? He knew that his father was the strongest person and would not visit him for no reason. After chatting for several hours, Han Ju began to preach the Tao. The Tao voice of the Creator Lord directly made Han Yunjin, a great Tao sage, fall into a state of enlightenment. After a certain period of time, Han Yunjin opened his eyes and felt that the entire world had changed. He thought that his father had already left, but he discovered that he was playing with his mirror in the distance. Han Yunjin hurriedly walked over and bowed. He scratched his head and said, "This is a Dharma treasure I created with the Han bloodline karma as the foundation. It's useless. I just can see the descendants of the Han family. Sorry, father." With Hanju's ability, he didn't need such a Dharma treasure at all. He could see all his descendants scattered in the myriad worlds at a glance. Although Han Yunjin was so flustered and uneasy in front of him, he was in the heavenly Tao. His dignity did not belong to the older generation of sages. Hanju smiled. "Not bad. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to you that the Han family can prosper. Although you don't have the cultivation potential of your brothers and sisters, I've always seen your efforts. I'm very glad. You're the one I'm most satisfied with, and looking forward to among my children." These words made Han Yunjin extremely excited, and even brought tears to his eyes. He was not acting. He was being sincere. Ever since he was young, his father had never praised him like this. He had also been looking forward to this. He didn't lack anything now. What he lacked the most was his father's recognition, the recognition of the strongest. Han Yunjin tried his best to control his emotions, feeling that his hundreds of millions of years of hard work had not been in vain. Hanju left after giving Han Yunjin a chaotic supreme treasure. He didn't order him to do anything in the future. This kid had already done well, and didn't need to be taught. After his father left, the hall fell silent. Han Yunjin took a deep breath, and his eyes became firm. He understood what his father meant. His father wanted him to continue developing the Han family, and praised him for handing over the power of the Han family to him. Perhaps this was his method to attain the Tao. Others used the world to attain the Tao, but he might be able to use his family to attain the Tao. The Tao mystic realm was surrounded by thousands of mortal worlds. These mortal worlds all overlapped. Above them was the immortal world, and they were all cultivators above the Mahayana realm. Below them was the mortal world, where all living beings suffered. In the center of the myriad worlds, countless rocks condensed into a land that kept expanding. In an immortal world, Chu Xiaoqi rode the clouds and mist, roaming the world. He looked around for Tang Wan after ascending. However, there were countless women with this name in the immortal world. According to their looks, they were still useless. Chu Xiaoqi traveled the immortal world and searched for hundreds of years, but did not find any traces of Tang Wan. However, he was not disappointed because he had obtained many opportunities, and his strength had been increasing rapidly. Even he felt that the experiences over the years were exciting and legendary. They were even more soul-stirring than the stories his grandfather had told. On this day, Chu Xiaoqi came to a land of immortals. All the immortal worlds had immortal orthodoxies that were responsible for ruling the three realms. This immortal world also had them. The immortals were collectively called the Divine Race. The Divine Clan was about to recruit immortals in this immortal land. Chu Xiaoqi felt that if he became an immortal, he might be able to find Tang Wan. At least, it would be easier than his current identity. Immortals could see through the three worlds. It was not difficult for him to become an immortal god with his cultivation. However, what surprised Chu Xiaoqi was that he was not the most outstanding one. The most outstanding person in this immortal ascension meeting was a man younger than him. His name was Chunju, and his cultivation level far exceeded his. This was the first time Chu Xiaoqi had encountered such a genius. He had broadened his horizons. After becoming an immortal god, Chunju was still extremely glorious. Chu Xiaoqi often heard legends about him. Unknowingly, surpassing Chunju had become Chu Xiaoqi's goal. He wasn't even in a hurry to find Tang Wan. Above the white clouds, the palace was like a sea of stars in a courtyard. Han Tua and Han Yunjin were drinking. Han Yunjin asked curiously, "This Chu Xiaoqi is your disciple? His potential is average." Chunju and Chu Xiaoqi met because of their manipulation. Han Tua smiled. "Yes, this child's talent is average, but his fate is extraordinary. Chunju is extremely talented, but his temperament is not good. Let the two of them become their own whetstones." Han Yunjin smiled. "I only dared to agree because you said so. Third sister thinks highly of Chunju. She stopped the heavenly court from recruiting him, Between big brother and third sister, he still knew who had the highest say. Han Ling would probably not blame him. Han Yunjin changed the topic and asked, "But then again, the Tao mystic realm is controlled by the formless world after all. Could it be? Formless world wouldn't reject other mighty figures from stuffing geniuses into the Tao mystic realm." He couldn't wait for this. Han Yunjin was worried that Chen Ju would die in the Tao mystic realm. Han Tuo said, "Don't worry. I have a good relationship with Formless World." Formless World was someone under the formless transcendent deity, and was loyal to Han Ju. Formless World naturally wouldn't go against the Han family. Han Yunjin did not know about the Tao creator level, so he was worried. However, he was relieved after hearing Han Tuo's promise. Han Tuo was still very reliable. At least, he was more reliable than his other siblings. At this moment, a figure flew over and knelt down beside the two of them. Sage concubine Yuan is in trouble. You have to save her." Han Yunjin frowned. Sage concubine Yuan was a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. How could it be difficult for her to give birth? He immediately bid farewell to Han Tuo and left with his subordinates. Han Tuo originally did not care. However, he suddenly frowned and turned around. This feeling, how can this be? He wasn't the only one. The other descendants of the Han family also felt it. Primordial chaos. In the dark hall, Han Huang, who was meditating, suddenly opened his eyes. "Thank you for reading on my box novel. Come." Chapter 1139 Han Liang. Chapter 1139 Han Liang. This feeling. Primordial Fiend Celestial. No, it's not the Primordial Fiend Celestial. To be able to resonate with my bloodline, it must be a descendant of the Han family. Han Huang's gaze pierced through the primordial chaos and landed on the heavenly Tao. At this moment, in Han Yunjin's Tao field, Han Yunjin quickly entered a chamber. He appeared at the edge of the bed and looked at the woman lying on it. The woman's face was in pain, and she couldn't stop sweating. She held her stomach with both hands. Red light shone from her stomach, illuminating her blood vessels and meridians. One could see the fetus struggling violently. "Husband!" Sage concubine Yuan called out with an aggrieved expression when she saw him. Han Yunjin frowned. "What's going on? You can't give birth?" Sage concubine Yuan's eyes were filled with fear. She said with a trembling voice, "He's absorbing my dermic powers and resisting being born. My dermic powers are no longer controlled by me." She had given birth to more than 10 children for Han Yunjin, but she had never encountered such a situation. Han Yunjin reached out and pressed down on Sage concubine Yuan's stomach. He wanted to use his dermic powers to move the child out. But just as his dermic powers touched the fetus, he instantly felt a burning pain, startling him so much that he subconsciously retracted his dermic powers. Box and Oval. C0M impossible. He was a great Tao sage. An unborn fetus could hurt him? Han Yunjin did not believe it and continued to try. But the burning sensation was too strong. It could even touch the soul. Han Yunjin panicked. At this moment, a figure appeared beside Han Yunjin. It was Han Ju. Han Ju's eyes narrowed. He directly pulled the fetus out. Sage concubine Yuan wailed and collapsed on the bed. He took the fetus with his left hand and waved his right hand, using the power of the Lord to heal her injuries. Han Yunjin heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing that it was his father. He couldn't be bothered to bow and hurriedly checked on Sage concubine Yuan. Han Ju looked down at the fetus. It was even smaller than a normal fetus of a mortal. It was only the size of a palm and was glowing red. There was a strange smile on the fetus face. After the fetus was born, it didn't wail. Instead, it stretched out its hands and grabbed at Han Ju. It giggled terrifyingly. Han Ju was expressionless. A notification floated in front of him. Unknown Fiend Celestial, a new product of the Endless Era. Catalyzed by the basic rules of the blank domain, it contains the instinct to destroy everything and eliminate obstacles for the blank domain. Its talent is comparable to the Primordial Fiend Celestial. A new bloodline finally appeared. Every era had different outstanding races. It was also possible for the Endless Era to give birth to talents that surpassed the past. After Han Yunjin walked over, Han Ju handed him his child. As for this grandson's potential, Hanju didn't plan to seal it. His potential, comparable to the primordial fiend celestial, was not enough to destroy the endless era. This child is extraordinary. You have to discipline him well, Hanju said meaningfully. The child was not that strong after being born. Previously, he was mainly protected by the basic rules in his mother's womb. Han Yunjin looked at the child he was holding with mixed emotions. He felt lingering fear at the scene just now. He couldn't help but ask, "Father, will there really be no hidden danger?" "Yes, so I need you to discipline him." With that, Hanju disappeared. He was born with the instinct to destroy everything. It looked evil, but that was not necessarily the case. Everything had two sides. After all, he was his grandson. Hanju naturally couldn't kill him in one go. Sage concubine Yuan had already recovered under the healing of the power of the Creator Lord. She came to Han Yunjin's side and took the child. She was no longer as afraid as before, and only had a doting expression. She said softly, "Your father said just now that we need to discipline him well. Any child can take the wrong path. Let's not be too wary of him, and treat him as a normal child." Han Yunjin was silent. For some reason, he inexplicably thought of Han Huang during the Great Tao immeasurable calamity. Would his child also become so violent? In the immortal world, above the 9 heavens, clouds surrounded a heavenly door standing on the top of the clouds. Chu Xiaoqi was standing guard. He clutched his chest and frowned. "What's going on? What's this feeling?" Chu Xiaoqi inexplicably panicked. His soul felt cold. This feeling was unprecedented. The immortal soldier beside him asked him with concern if he needed to rest. He did not force himself. He bid farewell and left. After returning to his residence, Chu Xiaoqi immediately circulated his energy to heal his injuries. However, the strange feeling disappeared just as he started. Strange? Chu Xiaoqi couldn't figure it out. He remained vigilant for the next period of time. Only after the feeling no longer appeared, after a long period of time, did he no longer worry. He wasn't the only one. All of Hanju's descendants felt it. The 10 divine stars even returned to the 3rd Tao field to visit him. Hanju didn't see them and only said, "You'll know in the future." The 10 divine stars couldn't figure it out. They quickly left the Tao field. They also had their own great ambitions. Hanju silently paid attention to Han Yunjin's child and named him Han Liang. This name, how meaningful. Han Liang had been lively since he was young and liked to cause trouble everywhere. It made Hanju inexplicably think of the legendary Neza. The story of Neza had long disappeared in history, but Hanju still remembered that there were children like Neza in every era. Rebellion was human nature, but normal people were bound by moral standards. Although Han Liang liked to cause trouble, under Han Yunjin's restrictions, he did not hurt the innocent. For the time being, it was difficult to imagine that this kid was born with the duty to destroy everything. Hanju suddenly had a bold thought. Should he use the creation heavens chosen? Perhaps it could increase Han Liang's talent. Hanju looked at Han Liang's future. His future had many possibilities. Most of them, he walked the evil path, just like Han Huang. However, in some futures, he maintained his rationality and bottom line. In one of the possible futures, he was a sage, a true sage who saved all living beings. Interesting. Born to destroy, he traveled the world but did good deeds. Hanju became interested in Han Liang. As for the creation heavens chosen, he should keep it. He would gather 100 attempts in the future and use them together. The descendants who had already reached the great Tao sage realm knew about Han Liang. The bloodline resonance caused by him was too oppressive. Therefore, on Han Liang's path of growth, strange clansmen often came to visit him. The one who treated him the best was Han Qing'er. She even brought him out to play. 1,000 years later, Han Liang looked to be only 5 or 6 years old, as if he would never grow up. Han Liang was not troubled by this. Like Han Huang, he did not care about the opinions of all living beings. On this day, Han Liang was playing on the heavenly Tao's Buzhou Divine Mountain. Han Yunjin was quite relieved since Han Yu was also on the mountain. A black vortex suddenly appeared in front of Han Liang. A huge black hand stretched out and grabbed him. Before this kid could even shout, he vanished without a trace. Han Yu appeared and quickly entered the black vortex, chasing after him. This was his little ancestor. How could he disappear in Buzhou Mountain? Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1140 Spacetime Force, Undercurrents Surging. Chapter 1140 Spacetime Force, Undercurrents Surging. Passing through the black vortex, Han Yu arrived in the spatial turbulence. As the great Tao Supreme, Han Yu was not confused by the spatial illusion, and quickly tracked Han Liang's figure. Han Liang was hugged by a masked gray-robed man, and could not break free. The gray-robed man's mask was clearly a chaotic supreme treasure. Han Yu could not spy on his true appearance. Even his aura felt ethereal. If he did not see it with his own eyes, he would probably think that Han Liang was traveling through the spatial turbulence alone. Han Yu quickly approached. Han Liang's eyes widened in surprise when he saw him. The gray-robed man turned around and waved his sleeve. Endless blood wind drowned Han Yu, but he did not panic. He used a divine might great heaven palm to disperse it, and even severed this spatial turbulence. Han Yu reached out and wrapped Han Liang with his dermic powers. He wanted to pull him over, but an extremely powerful force dispersed his dermic powers and even injured his soul. Han Yu frowned and felt uneasy. With this exchange, he knew that he was not the other party's match. However, he did not retreat. He had to save Han Liang. Han Liang was born with a bloodline suppression on the other clansmen. Such potential was the fortune of the Han family, and could not be lost. Han Yu attacked again. Box novel. C0M. The gray-robed man suddenly stopped and cancelled out Han Yu's mystical power. Sage Han Yu, you shouldn't have stopped me. Han Yu found his voice unfamiliar and asked in a low voice. You want to be enemies with the Han family? The gray-robed man said. On the contrary, I'm saving the Han family. This child can't be left alive. Han Yu frowned. The gray-robed man raised his right hand and drew a semicircle in front of him. In an instant, a blood-colored half-moon condensed. Han Yu's gaze subconsciously landed on the blood-colored half-moon, and he was in a daze. Han Yu opened his eyes and discovered that he had arrived in a blood-colored void. In the distance, he could see many dilapidated worlds. Corpses were everywhere. This was a blank domain. The reason why it was blood-colored was that there were too many killings. Han Yu saw a figure. It was Han Liang. This Han Liang looked to be only 12 or 13 years old. He wore a blood-patterned black robe. The crisscrossing blood patterns constantly emitted a blood mist. This black robe was slightly wide. His long hair was disheveled, and a cruel smile hung on his handsome face. Han Yu was not shocked to see Han Liang. He realized that this was an illusion. What he saw and heard was not important. What he had to do was leave the illusion as soon as possible. When Han Liang rushed in front of him, he still did not care. Boom! Han Liang's palm pierced through Han Yu's chest. The extremely realistic pain moved Han Yu. Disbelief appeared on his face. Han Liang was absorbing his dermic powers. This was not a fake illusion. Impossible. In the third Tao field, Han Ju opened his eyes. Han Yu and Han Yenjin were waiting to see him outside the Taoist temple. Han Ju let them in. Han Yenjin bowed and said anxiously, Father, my son Han Liang has been captured. Han Yu told him about his pursuit of the gray-robed man. He hid the future of Han Liang he had seen. Han Ju was not surprised and said calmly, I already know about this. Seeing Han Ju's calm reaction, Han Yenjin couldn't help but ask, Father, what should we do about this? Han Yenjin had countless children, so he naturally did not show preference to Han Liang. At first, he was still very vigilant, so he was more worried that Han Liang would become a hidden danger. With that, a small head poked out from behind Han Ju. Who else could it be but Han Liang? The Taoist temple blocked their senses, so Han Yenjin and Han Yu didn't sense Han Liang's existence after entering. In front of Han Ju, they didn't dare to look around. Lianger, Han Yenjin shouted in surprise. Han Yu also heaved a sigh of relief. Han Liang didn't pounce on his father. Instead, he lay on Han Ju's shoulder and giggled at his father. Seeing his smile, Han Yu could not help but shiver. Han Ju said, Go back. Lianger will stay here with me. Han Yenjin hesitated. Seeing that his youngest son did not want to go with him at all, He sighed and left. Han Yu also wanted to say something, but he suddenly felt relieved upon seeing Han Ju's gaze. Perhaps their progenitor, the strongest existence, knew everything. Han Yu also left, but Han Yunjin did not leave the Dao field immediately. Instead, he went to visit his mother Li Yao. Han Ju hugged Han Liang and smiled. "Little fellow, don't run around in the future. Many people want to capture you, including yourself." Han Liang tilted his head and asked, "Grandpa, why would I capture myself?" Han Ju smiled and didn't say anything. He rubbed his head. In the Taoist temple next door, Han Yunjin faced Li Yao and expressed his worry. The two of them sat facing each other. They did not look like mother and son, but more like siblings. Li Yao's cold face revealed a smile. "Don't worry. Lianger is by your father's side now. This is your father's concern for you." Han Yunjin was stunned and came to a realization. If even his father could not control Han Liang, no one in the world would be able to protect him. Li Yao continued, "You already have enough descendants. You don't have to have children anymore." Han Yunjin blushed and hurriedly bid farewell. Li Yao smiled and closed her eyes to continue cultivating. Among Han Ju's Dao companions, she was the one with the greatest hope of becoming a Dao creator. She had also been working hard toward this goal and had never relaxed. 3,000 years later, in the Dao field, Han Liang rode the clouds. Sometimes he transformed into a Kuan Peng, sometimes into an azure dragon, causing the disciples on the ground to exclaim and clap from time to time. These disciples' cultivation levels far exceeded Han Liang's. The reason why they were so shocked was not only to please him, but also because of Han Liang's potential. This kid was already at the deity realm. He had grown too quickly. Han Liang had always looked like a youth, and his temperament would never grow up. So he was deeply loved by the disciples. "Lianger, third aunt is here." Han Qinger flew over and hugged him. Han Liang looked disgusted and struggled to get out of her grasp. "Go away. I don't want to play with you." In the beginning, Han Liang quite liked Han Qinger, but every time she came, she would trample on him, causing him to feel more and more disgusted. No matter how Han Liang struggled, he could not escape Han Qinger. On the other side, Jiang Juesher went to visit Han Ju. After Han Ju became invincible, he no longer deliberately entered seclusion. Furthermore, very few people dared to disturb him. Jiang Juesher kowtowed respectfully after entering the temple. He looked up at Han Ju and said, "Master, discovered something in the cycle of reincarnation. A mysterious force is accumulating power in space-time, and even mentioned the dark forbidden lord. I'm afraid it's not a good thing." He told Han Ju what he knew. He left after Han Ju expressed his understanding. He only came to remind him. Han Ju looked at Han Liang. "I didn't expect you, Ji Xianshan, and Heavenly Venerate Sun to be together. How interesting," Han Ju muttered to himself. Heavenly Venerate Sun was the future Dao creator from the great Dao Immeasurable Calamity. He was also Han Ju's descendant. But that was not Han Liang. He was only related to him. Thank you for reading on my box novel. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.